Wait, there's never been a mess like this. No more hands to hold, the page turns tomorrow, a hurt to give all. Curse us as God has, believe me. Hell has no room for your crime, so beat me till the blood and the bone find our end here. Bye bye world, will our hearts still hold on? Boy, you're never gonna see the things that come of these. Raise your hands high, young brothers and sisters. There's a world's worth of work and the need for you. Oh, change is coming. These doors now closing. Is there no word for tomorrow if we wait for today? So march to the drumming, show them you're coming. You've been there, played, cut to the carving, bleed until rubbing. Enough, they'll take no more. PowerPoint will go and make you move. Curse us, these gods aren't faking. Have mercy on the cowards, boy, we'll pray to have you lose. Help us, this world's now breaking. So now they've noticed, oh, you've given it sound. Let us in, let us in. Give me love over life, the sweet soft ground. Let us in now. Bye bye world, will our hope still hold on? Boy, you're never gonna see the things that come of these. Raise your hands high, young brothers and sisters. There's a world's worth of work and the need for you. Oh, change is coming. These doors now close. Is there no word for tomorrow if we wait for today? So march to the drumming, show them you're coming. You've been there, played, cut to the carving, bleed until rubbing. Enough, they'll take no more. In the light we'll sing, as all hurt must spring. In the falling cusp of all broken bones. In the coming dusk, you will call on us, and unite we must. On the crawling lost, you don't think you figured me out. Do as I say. Your words mean nothing, they don't. So now I lay, I said, come over, come over. There's a need, I said, come over, come over. Watch them bleed, oh. What did I do to deserve all of this? What did I do to deserve all of you? Bye bye world, will our hope still hold on? Boy, you're never gonna see the things that come of these. Raise your hands high, young brothers and sisters.
All right, how's everybody doing this evening? We're going to discuss this evening. I have with me a friend of mine, the Cynic. We're going to read over this huge PowerPoint presentation I have on the numerous connections between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to discuss it, and we're going to, of course, try to put it up in a Dropbox PDF file with all the sources so you can go through it and everything. But yes, so why don't you say hi, everybody, the Cynic. How you doing this evening, brother?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with Mr. John Brisson.
Yeah,
We're gonna give him a show, aren't we?
we're gonna cover some very somber and deep topics and everything. And a lot of people, they tell me, the Cynic, they go, that Bill Clinton, the Clinton body count, and I'm not saying there isn't a Clinton body count, but they mentioned that it's definitely the Clintons that off Jeffrey Epstein, and there's no connections to Donald Trump and Jeffrey. They were friends, but they barely knew each other. Don't worry about that. We're gonna get into why there are so many connections.
Right. Yeah, I mean, my perspective on it is the Clintons didn't need to off Jeffrey Epstein. He's pissed off so many people with getting caught that, there's probably a whole...
Yes, a whole lot of people. A whole lot of people. So the next slide, I've shown it before. I'm going to briefly discuss it. This are all of the a lot of the connections between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, whether it's Donald Trump's mentor, Rory Cohn. Robert Maxwell is the father of Ghislaine Maxwell. Alan Dershowitz, Chuck Johnson, Cernovich. Chuck Johnson worked for Alan Dershowitz. Cernovich both and Chuck Johnson both covering for Dershowitz, in my opinion. But yeah, this is, everybody can see this. I'm going to leave it here for a minute. I'm not going to read everything here. I've discussed it before. It's a really, really good, from Tapioca Talk, The World Needs This Man, John Swin. Really good connections. I've researched them. They all connect with it. So yeah, you can pause this and look at it for yourself. Or you can go to theworldneedsthisman.blogspot.co.uk, and the information is up there for it. The next slide that we have is from Virginia Roberts Giuffre's complaint, and that is something I always want people to remember. Remember, Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking network was always greater than the Lolita Express and Little St. James Island. If anybody just says it's a Lolita Express, Bill Clinton flew in the Lolita Express, 20 plus times, as much as 26 times. Yes, I believe that is true. But it is
Right.
more than just that. It's more, there was the Santa Fe Ranch in New Mexico. There was trips to Atlantic City, possibly Trump's casino, that hasn't come out yet. To London, to Paris, to the New York City Upper East Side Lex Wexner mansion. So yes, Mateo asked in the chat, where can he get this chart from? It is linked at the top in the scribe document. I will drop a PDF with this in here, and you can go, it's just up there, you can find. But these are all the places that Virginia Roberts Giuffre was trafficked to, allegedly. The next slide, of course, is a picture of good old Roy Cohn, Donald Trump's mentor, and Donald Trump. This comes out of the movie that is has already shown up in film festivals, but it's going to be for all of us to see it's going to come out on September, and it's from the movie Where's My Roy Cohn? So yes, I do believe that Centurion over to the right of Roy Cohn, it does have Donald Trump's blue hair, blue eyes and blonde hair, and it is definitely Donald Trump. For anybody out there who says it's not, it's going to be coming from this documentary. I cannot wait to watch this documentary. But that is Donald Trump on the right to his mentor, Roy Cohn. Of course, there are numerous connections between Roy Cohn and Donald Trump. I will not get into them this evening, but I've presented some good links for you to follow. Of course, I interviewed Recluse from viseupview.blogspot.com, and we talked about Roy Cohn and Donald Trump's connections. Here are some links that you can, if you want to read about or listen to the connections between Roy Cohn and Donald Trump, but there are very numerous amounts of them. So, the Cynic, why don't we actually get into the meat of it when Donald Trump allegedly met Jeffrey Epstein?
All right. Well, let's go forward. Trump said in October, on the 28th of October in 2002, in the New York Magazine article, Jeffrey Epstein, international money man of mystery, interview that he had known Jeffrey Epstein for 15 years at the time. Therefore, Trump met Epstein at his word in 1987. With a quote, I've known Jeffrey for 15 years. Terrific guy, Trump said. And we've got a link there. And, of course, you can email, we've read the documents at protonmail.com if you have any more information about Trump meeting Epstein in 1987.
Or before then, if anybody knows anything.
Or before then.
About that. All right, so let's get to the slide where Donald Trump met the Maxwell.
Okay, so we've got an article over here. You can see it on the left. The Donald Sands shoes. Everybody but everybody at the party aboard British media mogul Robert Maxwell's yachts Wednesday night had to doff their shoes before boarding the plush-carpeted Lady Ghislaine. Maxwell insisted, and his guests cooperated, including Donald Trump, minus Ivana, who has a much bigger yacht and was happy to compare notes with Maxwell. There were John Tower, ex-Navy Secretary, John Lehman, now with Payne Webber, lawyer Tom Boland, literary agent Mort Jacklow, UN envoy Thomas Pickering, Peter Calicow, owner of the New York Post, Maxwell's daughter, Ghislaine, and his niece, Helen Atkin of Macmillan, the publishing house. Sorry about that. The publishing house Maxwell recently took over. No one could tell who didn't make the final list, but we do know that Martha Smiglis of Time was disinvited by David Adler, public relations chief at Macmillan. She wrote the profile of Maxwell, which he apparently did not like.
And this article comes from the Daily News, May 5th, 1989. There's also a link to Recluse's blog, more information about the Maxwells and relationship with Donald Trump. The next slide, we're going to talk about the Mar-a-Lago Party for Two that happened in 1992.
All right, so this is from the New York Times, Haberman Carney. Jeffrey Epstein was a terrific guy. Donald Trump once said, now he's not a fan. July 9th, 2019. It was supposed to be an exclusive party at Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's members-only club in Palm Beach. But other than the 24 or so women flown in to provide entertainment, the only guests were Mr. Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. The year was 1992. The event was a calendar girl competition, something that George Horaney, a Florida-based businessman who ran American Dream Enterprise, had organized at Mr. Trump's request. I arranged to have some contestants fly in, Mr. Horaney recalled in an interview on Monday. At the very first party, I said, who's coming tonight? I have 28 girls coming. It was him and Epstein. Mr. Horaney, who had just partnered with Mr. Trump to host events at his casino, said he was surprised and said, Donald, this is supposed to be a party with VIPs. You're telling me it's you and Epstein? He dismissed Mr. Horaney's warning about his friend's conduct. I said, look, Donald, I know Jeff really well. I can't have him going after younger girls. Mr. Horaney remembers. He said, look, I'm putting my name on this. I wouldn't put my name on it and have a scandal. Mr. Horaney said, pretty much had to ban Jeff from my events. Trump didn't care about that. Shortly before the 2016 presidential election, Mr. Horaney accused Mr. Trump himself of inappropriate behavior towards his girlfriend and business partner, Jill Harth, during their business dealings.
So next we're going to play a clip. Hopefully it's able to load. From MSNBC of Trump's party at Mar-a-Lago with cheerleaders, November 1992. This is a private party. Actually, the party with Horaney, should I say, actually, before that. It was a private party with just Epstein, Donald Trump, and models. We have no idea the age of those models. Okay? This was a more more greater party with cheerleaders and everything. There was a lot of people here. So why don't we play this clip? Oh, an error occurred. Okay. Well, the clip is the clip is in the notes. Sorry about that. I have no why it did not work. But yes, he was at a party with a whole bunch of cheerleaders back in November 1992. And of course, I wanted to show Jeffrey Epstein dancing very awkwardly and looking very slimy and Trump dancing, but it didn't work about the clip. I apologize about that.
I just linked you the link. Can you play it without?
Yeah, let me see.
At least one woman has come
Yeah,
forward
wow.
to say she
All
was
right, let's do
abused
it then.
by sex trafficking. He has pleaded not guilty. The president says his relationship with Epstein was no different than anyone else in their elite circle.
Well, I knew him like everybody in Palm Beach knew him. He was a fixture in Palm Beach. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan.
Yet, a tape in the NBC archives of a Mar-a-Lago party shows Trump giving Epstein his personal attention. The footage, shot in November of 1992, before Trump opened the resort as a club, shows the future president surrounded by cheerleaders for the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins, capturing Trump's fun-loving bachelor lifestyle for an appearance on Faith Daniels' NBC talk show.
We're going to get great ratings in your show.
Trump is surrounded by women as music blares in the background. After a while, Trump goes to greet 3 new guests, among them the financier Jeffrey Epstein.
Come on in. Go inside.
More than a decade before his guilty plea on state prostitution charges. Later in the footage, Trump is seen talking to Epstein and another man as women are dancing in front of them. Trump alternates between dancing and pointing out women to Epstein and the other man and telling Epstein about the cameras. Though exactly what they say is difficult to understand as they discuss the women and their appearances, Trump gestures to one and appears to say to Epstein, "Look at her back there. She's hot." And then Trump says something else into Epstein's ear that makes him double over with laughter. But as the president says now, he never liked Epstein.
I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you. I was not a fan of his.
Looks like a big fan of Epstein.
I feel like I saw Ghislaine.
All right. So we got to see Jeffrey, who looked very smarmy, Trump dancing a little bit. You know, Trump was a little bit likable. He's the Donald, you know. So it's just very it's just very interesting that it's just, God, you look at Epstein, he just looks uncomfortable and smarmy and everything. So,
Right. I'm not gonna lie. Trump kind of does dance like a pedo. Like that's what I expect a pedo to dance like. Whereas Epstein kind of just looks like all he can think is, when is the rape gonna happen? When is the rape gonna happen? When is the rape gonna happen? You know, that's all I can see going through his head when I look at him.
Yeah, I agree. He's very just, he's just. It's 2 peas in a pod. I'll go over more of that. So next we got earliest known occurrence of Jeffrey Epstein being seen with Ghislaine Maxwell, 1993, from the New York Daily News, February 28th, 1993.
All right. Is it a good or bad omen that Sean Penn came to the opening of Merc Bar on Mercer Street? The paparazzi pummeler was low-key in a baseball cap as he quenched his thirst with Tim Hutton and Kevin Dillon. Other faces in the downtown crowd, art dealer Larry Gagosian, beauteous Alexandra Loeb, restaurateurs Jerry Joseph, Roy Liebenthal, and Giorgio DeLuca. Photographer Dewey Nix. Financier Jeffrey Epstein. Ghislaine Maxwell. Ford models Tara Westwood and Teal DeNitro, right hand Jane Rosenthal. Rap impressionaro Leo Cohen, and designer Nicole Miller.
So yeah, that's the earliest we know that Jeffrey Epstein is being seen with Ghislaine Maxwell. Of course, she would later be his procurer of underage children, as well as possibly his quote-unquote girlfriend. So next we're going to start with Katie Johnson's complaint. Katie Doe from 1994. Katie Johnson's pseudonym lawsuit against Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump was filed 3 times.
Pseudonym. Lawsuit against Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump was filed 3 times. The first lawsuit, filed on April 26, 2016, was filed mostly on her own. She appeared pro per within the state of California and was thrown out on a technicality. The lawsuit was thrown out because she filed the lawsuit incorrectly as a civil rights abuse lawsuit. The phone number she provided was disconnected, and all mail sent to her about the lawsuit was returned. The addresses she filed from was a foreclosed abandoned home. I believe this occurred because she was homeless at the time. The second lawsuit was filed on June 20, 2016 by Thomas Francis Meagher, a patent attorney from New Jersey. The details of the first complaint remain similar in the second complaint. Ed Opperman has recently disclosed that he was the private investigator for the Katie Johnson case, speaks to its legitimacy, and was hired by Meagher. The third lawsuit was filed on September 30, 2016 by Thomas Francis Meagher and later Lisa Bloom. The daughter of the famous feminist lawyer Gloria Allred joined as legal counsel. The third lawsuit was allegedly voluntarily dismissed on November 11, 2016 by Katie Johnson because of her being threatened and fearing for her life.
Okay. Continue with the complaint.
The allegations... Okay. The allegations are not only categorically false, but disgusting at the highest level and clearly framed to solicit media attention, or perhaps are simply politically motivated, Trump told Radar Online, April 2016, after the first lawsuit was filed. There is absolutely no merit to these allegations, period. In spring 2016, the video deposition of Katie Johnson was released on a website, Justice for Katie, after being allegedly shopped around for $1 million. Norm LeBow, Al Taylor, a former producer on the Jerry Springer TV show, had previously been involved with disputed allegations that O.J. Simpson bought illegal drugs on the day Simpson's wife was murdered, and that Kurt Cobain's widow had the Nirvana frontman killed. LeBow, who shot and produced the video, an attorney brought in to file Katie Johnson's lawsuit against Trump in New York, said any issues around the credibility of Al Taylor should not cast doubt on Johnson's allegations. The attorney, Thomas Meagher, a patent and intellectual property attorney, who said he had never been involved in a case of this kind before, Meagher said he became involved after reading on a minor gossip website that Johnson's legal action in California had faltered and that she was seeking representation. Meagher acknowledged that Al Taylor was acting as a go-between for the women said to be suing Trump. After repeated questions to Al Taylor, asking him to confirm he was Norm LeBow went ignored, a text message was eventually sent to The Guardian from a cell phone previously answered several times by Taylor. It said, "This is Katie Johnson. Why do you keep asking for LeBow? I do not know and have never met anybody by this name. If you really are a reporter like you claim you are, and not just a crank call like thousands of other calls I have gotten since my phone number was published throughout the world, then why don't you ask how it feels to have the pervert who raped me when I was only 13 years running for president of this great country? It sickens me every time I see his evil face on TV. I'm not after money. I want revenge for what this evil pedophile did to me. He doesn't deserve to be president. He deserves to be in jail. If you really are a reporter like you told my attorney, Tom Meagher, then please publish my statement for the millions of other rape victims who have no voice. Thank you, Katie Johnson."
Thank you, the Cynic. Okay, next we got more on Katie Johnson's complaint from 1994 about Lisa Bloom's involvement.
Okay. Lisa Bloom was going to hold a press conference with Katie Johnson on November 2nd, 2016. at 3 in the afternoon Pacific time in Los Angeles. However, because of threats and because of both her website and the streaming service was DDoSed, it was cancelled. We will reference for this presentation from the first Katie Johnson complaint, which is before Lisa Bloom and Norm Labau's involvement. Lisa Bloom's involvement in the case will throw up some red flags because of her involvement in advertising Harvey Weinstein during sexual abuse
not
allegations.
advertising. She advised him
Oh.
as a lawyer, not advertising.
My bad. Advising Harvey Weinstein during sexual abuse allegations and because of her famous mother, Gloria Aldred. I do, however, believe the video complaint and testimony of Katie Johnson, even though Norm Labau was involved. However, I can understand some of the reservations associated with it and who surrounded themselves around Katie Johnson at the time. I do believe Ed Opperman's work with the Katie Johnson case does bring more validity to her complaint.
Yes, so at least everybody knows Gloria Allred's a famous feminist lawyer. Some people may have some issues with her. I do, and Lisa Bloom's involvement. I actually think Lisa Bloom's involvement was to co-op the Katie Johnson case, in my opinion. I may be wrong about that, but I do think that's what occurred. But again, I believe in Katie Johnson's original complaint that she had filed, and we're about to read from that now. So the plaintiff, Katie Johnson, alleges she was subject to extreme sexual and physical abuse by the defendants Donald John Trump and Jeffrey E. Epstein, including forcible rape during a 4-month time span covering the months of June to September 1994, when plaintiff Johnson was still only a minor of age 13. The plaintiff, Katie Johnson, alleges she was enticed by promises of money and a modeling career to attend a series of underage sex parties held at New York City residence of defendant Jeffrey E. Epstein and attended by defendant Donald John Trump. On the first occasion involving the defendant, Donald John Trump, the plaintiff, Katie Johnson, was forced to manually stimulate defendant Trump with the use of her hand upon defendant Trump's erect penis until he reached sexual orgasm. On the second occasion involving the defendant, Donald John Trump, the plaintiff, Katie Johnson, was forced to orally copulate defendant Trump by placing her mouth upon defendant. Okay, you can go ahead, Cynic.
Okay. On the third occasion involving the defendant, Donald J. Trump, the plaintiff, Katie Johnson, was forced to engage in unnatural lesbian sex act with her fellow minor and sex slave, Maria Doe, age 12, for the sexual enjoyment of defendant Trump. After the sex act, both minors were forced to orally copulate defendant Trump by placing their mouths simultaneously on his erect penis until he achieved sexual orgasm. After zipping up his pants, defendant Trump physically pushed both minors away while angrily berating them for poor quality of their sexual performance. On the fourth and final sexual encounter with the defendant Donald J. Trump, the plaintiff, Katie Johnson was tied to a bed by defendant Trump, who proceeded to forcibly rape plaintiff Johnson. During the course of this savage sexual attack, plaintiff Johnson loudly pleaded with defendant Trump to please wear a condom. Defendant Trump responded by violently striking plaintiff Johnson in the face with his open hand and screaming that he would do whatever he wanted, as he refused to wear protection. After achieving sexual orgasm, defendant Donald J. Trump would put his suit back on when the plaintiff, Katie Johnson, in tears, asked defendant Trump what would happen if he had impregnated her. Defendant Trump grabbed his wallet and threw some money at her and screamed she should use the money to get a fucking abortion. Ooh. Shortly after the sexual assault by defendant Jeffrey E. Epstein on the plaintiff, Katie Johnson, plaintiff Johnson was still present while two defendants were arguing over who would be the one to take plaintiff Johnson's virginity. The defendant, Donald J. Trump, was clearly heard referring to defendant Jeffrey E. Epstein as a Jew bastard as he yelled at defendant Epstein that clearly he, defendant Trump, should be the lucky one to pop the cherry of plaintiff Johnson. The third and final sexual act of defendant Jeffrey E. Epstein on plaintiff Katie E. Johnson took place after plaintiff Johnson had been brutally and savagely raped by defendant Trump while receiving another full-body massage from plaintiff Johnson while in the nude. Defendant Epstein became so enraged after finding out that defendant Trump had been the one to take plaintiff Johnson's virginity that defendant Epstein also violently raped plaintiff Johnson. after forcing plaintiff Johnson to disrobe into her bra and panties while receiving a massage from the plaintiff. Defendant Epstein attempted to enter plaintiff Johnson's anal cavity with his erect penis while trying to restrain her. Plaintiff Johnson attempted to push defendant Epstein away, at which defendant Epstein attempted to enter plaintiff Johnson's vagina with his erect penis. Tiffany Doe, a former trusted employee of the defendant, Jeffrey E. Epstein, has agreed to provide sworn testimony in this civil case and any other future civil or criminal proceedings, fully verifying the authenticity of the claims of the plaintiff, Katie Johnson. Witness Tiffany Doe was employed by the defendant, Jeffrey E. Epstein, for more than 10 years as a party planner for his underage sex parties, despite being subject to constant terroristic threats by defendants Epstein and Trump to never reveal the details of these underage sex parties, at which scores of teenagers and preteen girls were used as sex slaves by defendant Epstein and defendant Trump. Witness Tiffany Doe refuses to be silent any longer. She has agreed to fully reveal the extent of sexual perversion and physical cruelty that she personally witnessed at these parties by defendant Epstein and Trump. Material witness Tiffany Doe fully confirms all of plaintiff Katie Johnson's allegations of physical and sexual abuse by defendant Donald J. Trump and Jeffrey E. Epstein. Tiffany Doe was physically present at each of the 4 occasions of sexual abuse by defendant Trump upon the person of plaintiff Johnson, as it was her job to witness all of the sexual escapades of defendant Epstein's guests at these underage sex parties, and later, all of the sordid details directly to defendant Epstein. Defendant Epstein also demanded that Tiffany Doe tell him personally. Defendant Epstein also demanded that Tiffany Doe tell him personally everything she had overheard at these parties, explaining to her that knowledge was king. In the financial world, as a result of these underage sex parties, defendant Epstein was able to accumulate inside business knowledge that he would otherwise never have been privy to in order to amass his huge personal fortune. Material witness Tiffany Doe will testify that she was also present or had direct knowledge of each of these 3 instances on which Jeffrey E. Epstein physically and sexually abused the plaintiff Katie Johnson. Tiffany Doe will testify to the fact that plaintiff Katie Johnson was extremely fortunate to have survived all of the physical and sexual horrors inflicted upon her by defendants Epstein and Trump. The plaintiff, Katie Johnson, asked the court for relief against the defendants, Donald J. Trump and Jeffrey E. Epstein, in the amount of $100 million as a result of the defendants' aforementioned acts upon which they willfully and maliciously violated the civil rights of plaintiff, as stated in 18 U.S.C. 2241, by sexually and physically abusing the 13-year-old plaintiff Johnson under threat of harm to her and her family, and 42 U.S.C. 1985, by the defendants conspiring to deny the civil rights of plaintiff Johnson by making her their sex slave.
With this real quick, I want to make a mention that this lawsuit, this original first lawsuit that Katie Johnson had pretty much, complaint that she put up herself, was denied because she filed it wrong. It was not a civil rights claim. As well as you can see down here, it says by plaintiff Katie Johnson. It's not by a lawyer. She did this herself. Her first complaint that was filed in California. So I do want to make that known. I know that was very graphic. That was very, very harsh to listen to. But we got to bring these evil atrocities to light.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a saying, evil triumphs when good men do nothing. So we gotta shine the light.
Very much so, this Cynic. You're very much correct. So Wayne Madsen supposedly locates Maria, the child who was mentioned in Katie Johnson's complaint. This is very important. Pay attention to this.
In 1993, Maria lived with her mother and 9 siblings in Puerto Rican neighborhood in Waterbury, which is nicknamed the Brass City for its once booming brass and clock factories. It is now suffering from urban blight, like many New England cities with abandoned factories. Maria, whose father died in 1991, was reportedly abducted just moments after her mother entered the pizzeria while asking Maria to wait outside. The precise circumstances are among the secrets that police are withholding, thus limiting news. The mother died in 2015. One resident of the kidnapped girl's close-knit neighborhood told us that the circumstances always seem strange to the family and neighbors, and yet almost no police or other interest has been apparent for many years. Our source also stated that Maria's mother always felt her daughter was alive and at one time was in New York City. Another source in Waterbury said that it was the belief by many neighborhood residents at the time of Maria's abduction that she was kidnapped by a ring operating out of New York. Those who took her, Maria, were not from Waterbury, said one longtime Puerto Rican resident with the case. Maria is still listed as a missing person by the Waterbury Police Department. The police missing person notification states that Maria was last seen at the corner of Walnut Street and Walnut Avenue at Nash's Pizza. It adds the girl was 11 years old when she went missing. Here is a development that proves startling in Maria's neighborhood, including to at least one family member. She is alive. Maria has been avoiding any public limelight since the Trump organization discovered her actual identity, according to our sources. During the 2016 presidential campaign, there was some interest in the Maria story by major corporate media outlets, but they were intimidated by Trump organization legal threats.
All right. Virginia Roberts' supposed opinion on Katie Johnson's claims from Radar Online. A source close to Virginia says she learned of Katie Johnson's claims yesterday. "Quote unquote, Virginia has never heard of the girl," the source said. There are two problems with Virginia Roberts' source's statement. One, Katie Johnson incidents occurred during 1994 at the New York City Upper East Side mansion, Lex Wexner mansion. Virginia Roberts was not involved with Jeffrey Epstein until she was recruited from Mar-a-Lago in 1999. Two, Katie Johnson is a pseudonym. That is not her real name. Therefore, Virginia Roberts could free have no idea who Katie Johnson is. Therefore, she has no point of reference to talk about her. Next, Donald Trump flew on Jeffrey Epstein's Gulfstream II from New York to Palm Beach, January 5th, 1997.
Right, and you can clearly see it in that picture. That clearly says Donald Trump.
Yep, right down there in the bottom, the Gulfstream II, the tail number N908JE is right there. So next, why don't you go ahead and Cynic and read Mark Epstein's deposition that he was given about this flight.
Okay. Have you ever met Donald Trump? Answer, yes. Question, was that through your brother? Answer, yes. Where was that? We flew on my brother's plane from Florida together. Donald was on the plane. When? Somewhere between 5 and 10 years ago. Okay, so we're talking about it's either late 90s or early 2000s. Probably more like late 90s. Was that the only time you met Donald Trump? Sorry. Was that the only time you met Donald Trump? Yes. Which plane was this of yours? Of your brother's? I don't remember. Was this one of the big planes? The 727? No, it wasn't that one, no. Don't remember if anybody else was on the plane. Question, what was the purpose of Donald Trump riding on your brother's airplane? You'll have to ask Donald. I think he wanted a ride back to New York. What was your understanding of the relationship of Donald Trump and your brother? They were friends. Do you know how they met? No. When you say they were friends, how frequently did they associate? I have no idea. What was your understanding? I had no understanding. They were friends. That was my understanding.
So Mark Epstein recently, in an interview with the Washington Times, mentioned that it was actually that Trump flew on the plane, the Gulfstream, numerous times, but said that Mark Epstein was only present there for one flight. They were good friends, Mark Epstein said. I know Trump is trying to distance himself, but they were. He added that Trump used to comp Epstein's mother and aunt at one of Trump's Atlantic City casino hotels. When a Post reporter sought for further details, Mark Epstein hung up. Here's a picture of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein at the Victoria's Secret Angels party at the Laura Bell Club in New York City, April 1997. Here's a picture of Trump and Epstein at Mar-a-Lago, 1997. Here's a picture of Donald Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell at the Ford's Models 50th anniversary party, October 1997. Here's a picture of Donald Trump, Epstein, Melania, and Ghislaine Maxwell at Mar-a-Lago, February 12th, 2000. Jeffrey Epstein also, since the election, claims that he was the one who introduced Donald Trump to Melania Knauss, who would become Melania Trump. And here is Donald Trump's Pro-Am tennis tournament, February 12th, 2000. Why don't you read the article, the Cynic?
Okay. Let me just zoom into it. It's a little bit low quality, but quite a crowd in town last weekend, including a reunion of sorts at Mar-a-Lago, where Donald Trump had a familiar face and body by his side. That's right, girlfriend Melania Knauss, who took a temporary backseat to politics, was back for the Donald's Pro-Am tennis tournament. Financier Michael Milken, a prostate cancer survivor, played, as did actor Stephen Bolton. Singer Michael Bolton and pros Roscoe Tanner and John Lloyd, among others. They helped raise $2 million for CAP Cure, a charity dedicated to treating and curing prostate cancer. One celebrity, however, was not so obvious. Even when Trump announced England's Prince Andrew, many in the crowd doubted his presence. For one, he stayed in the background, introducing himself as Andrew York. And for two, he's recently shed 20 pounds, making him a possible double for actor Rupert Everett. Meanwhile, more than 1,700 guests turned out in Wellington for Denim and Diamonds, the largest charity gala in the Palm Beaches. It raised more than $300,000 for the U.S. equestrian team and the Equestrian AIDS Foundation.
Very interesting that they're all together there. Trump Maximum Golf article, October 2000. Melania Knauss, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and a girl made to look older boarded Trump's private jet from LaGuardia, New York City to Mar-a-Lago, Palm Beach, Florida, where they all had dinner. Epstein and his group were late to boarding Trump's private jet at LaGuardia Airport. And here's the rest of the Maximum Golf article for some new information that we got from the author, Corcoran.
Trump needs no convincing. On one point, however, as he scans the diners on the veranda, a young socialite catches his eye. There is nothing in the world like first-class pussy, says Trump. There is nothing in the world like first-class pussy. Affirming that in the eyes of the American public, he wouldn't have made one hell of a president.
No, he would have made one hell of a president. So the Cynic will ask you, is that a prophetic statement? Because he did become president. Oh my goodness. And also grab him by the pussy.
Well, honestly, when I'm reading that, I'm thinking anybody who's like first class pussy, you gotta get first class pussy, isn't the kind of person you want for president. But
no, but then grab by the pussy, and it's extremely interesting of how that foretold it, you know, and it is in that article.
Epic foreshadowing, as they call it.
Yes.
According to Corcoran, Epstein and Maxwell arrived with another passenger not mentioned, originally in October 2000 article. They did board with a young woman of indeterminate age. I wouldn't be able to tell you if she was 15 or 20. She was quite dressed up and quite made up, so it was hard to tell. Corcoran said over the weekend, at the time, I didn't know who Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were. So when they got on, I thought maybe they're married, and that's their niece. From the Daily Beast, Trump bragged, nothing in the world like first-class pussy. And you've got a link to that article.
So that's very, very interesting. And I was actually the one who found this article. An interesting side note about this was I found the magazine. I put an alert on eBay. I waited. And then eventually I saw someone was selling it because this article had been scrubbed off the face of the internet. And I was the one who found it, and I purchased a signed copy by some golfer, signed it or whatever for like $15. and I gave a dead Opperman, and history was made. I found a scrubbed article from the internet. Go me, I guess.
Yeah.
So
You only get first-class research that we've read the documents. I'll tell you that much.
Very much so, the Cynic, very much so. Next, we got Conrad Black's party. Conrad Black's very interesting. December 2000.
All right. In December 2000, both Trump and Epstein attended the birthday party hosted by media magnate Conrad Black, whose contact information was in Epstein's little black book, for his wife, Barbara Amiel, for her 60th birthday. Lynn Rothschild, Mort Zuckerman, Donald Lauder, Henry Kissinger, Ghislaine Maxwell, Happy Rockefeller, Taki Theodorakopoulos, and others. Black, who in 2007 was convicted and served time in prison for fraud and obstruction of justice. The fraud charges were overturned on appeal. Black is currently an enthusiastic supporter of Trump's presidential bid.
That's a lot of people at that party, isn't the Cynic? That's a Rockefeller, Kissinger, Rothschild. That's Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump aren't friends. You know, they're going to very exclusive parties. Donald Trump's our guy, ain't he?
Yeah, I'm just glad I managed to pronounce the Greek name correctly, or else I would have lost all credibility as a Greek philosopher.
Yes, and he also runs Tacky Mag, Therduro. I'm not even gonna be able to pronounce it.
Theodorakopoulos.
There you go. Congratulations. Then we got more about Conrad Black to go on.
Okay. Let's see. So this is from NPR.org. Trump pardons his friend Conrad Black, who wrote glowing Trump biography last year. And you've got a link to that article right there. Conrad Black is also a friend of President and frequently praises him in his newspaper columns. Last year, Conrad Black published a biography of Donald Trump titled Donald J. Trump, a President Like No Other. In 2007, Conrad Black was convicted of obstruction of justice and fraud for illegally pocketing money that should have gone to stockholders. He spent more than 3 years in prison. During his 2007 trial, Donald Trump had been expected to testify as a witness in Conrad Black's defense before Conrad Black's lawyers decided against it. In a press release, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders describes Conrad Black as an entrepreneur and scholar who has made tremendous contributions to business, as well as political and historical thought. She also lists some other famous men who vouch for him: Henry Kissinger, Elton John, Rush Limbaugh, and the late William F. Buckley Jr. She notes that Conrad Black is an author of biographies on Presidents Franklin Roosevelt and Richard Nixon, though she does not mention the Donald Trump biography. Donald Trump later pardoned Conrad Black on May 15th, 2019.
Fix is in. All right, we got a little bit more about Black. This is very interesting. We're gonna get on to Vicky Ward and why Vicky Ward might be disinformation, in my opinion. Limited hangout.
All right. So from the Daily Beast, we've got Jeffrey Epstein's sick story played out for years in plain sight. As the article was being readied for publication, Epstein made a visit to the office of Vanity Fair's then editor, Graydon Carter, and suddenly the women and their allegations were removed from the article. He's sensitive about the young women, Carter told me at the time. Editor's note: Carter has previously denied this allegation. He also mentioned he'd finangled a photograph of Epstein in a swimsuit out of the encounter. And there was also some feeble excuse about the article being stronger as a business story. Epstein had also leaned heavily on my ex-husband's step-uncle, Conrad Black, to try and exert his influence on me, which was particularly unwelcome, given that Black happened to be my ex-husband's boss at the time. From the Daily Mail, my scandalous and very public divorce, British writer who conquered New York gives unflinching account of breakup. And you've got the article there. She divorced her husband, Matthew Dowell, in 2010, and he was the father of her unborn child that Jeffrey Epstein allegedly threatened. Vicky Ward attended a party on April 1st, 2008 with Ghislaine Maxwell. And you've got an image of that in the link.
And also, too, one thing about Vicky Ward is why did now she claims that she waited so long to divorce her husband, and they lived in a loveless marriage, and of course, she gets threatened. Her unborn child gets threatened, but she stays with her husband. The reason why she stayed with him was not because she was scared for her life or scared for her life or her unborn child, because these are powerful people. Allegedly, she claims that she stayed with him because it would have ruined her career as a journalist. Conrad Black would have buried her, and he would have Dow would have buried her if she would have left him. So I find that very interesting. You know, you think she'd leave him because they're both scumbags, in my opinion. But no, it was because of her career. And of course, here's another picture of Vicky Ward with Ghislaine Maxwell a year later, May 11th, 2009. Vicky Ward's right here on the left. So yeah, Vicky Ward, even though, you know, Ghislaine Maxwell, she knows Maxwell, Epstein, you know, pedophiles and everything, yet, you know, she's hanging out with them. That's extremely questionable, very, very questionable. That she's gonna, you know, that she, you know, I definitely believe that Vicky Ward is a limited hangout, in my opinion.
Right.
All right, so next we got Donald Trump's infamous quote about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein in the New York Magazine, 2002. Epstein likes to tell people that he's a loner, a man who's never touched alcohol or drugs, and one with nightlife in far from energetic. And yet, if you talk to Donald Trump, a different Epstein emerges.
Well, can I read this?
Yes.
In Trump voice?
Yes, I love.
I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. Trump booms from a speakerphone. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side, no doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life.
From the New York Magazine, Jeffrey Epstein, International Money Man of Mystery by Landon Thomas Jr. So yeah, interesting that Trump says that many of his girls are on the younger side. It's very interesting, isn't it, the Cynic?
It almost gives us the impression that Trump had some inside baseball and was like giving a little bit of a jab at his good mate.
Oh, he would never
would
never do such a thing. Trump had no idea. Trust the plan.
Well, the thing is, my understanding was Trump's idea of a beautiful woman is like, what, 18 to 22 years old, at least in his public image. That's the type of woman he likes. And if he talks about on the younger side, how much younger can you get than 18?
Yeah, illegal and immoral. So yeah, that's definitely something. You got a good point there. Donald Trump periodically dines at Jeffrey Epstein's Palm Beach estate, 2003. Some of the businessmen who die with him at his home, they include newspaper publisher Mort Zuckerman, banker Louis Ranieri, Revlon chairman Ronald Perlman, real estate tycoon Leon Black, former Microsoft executive Nathan Myhrvold, Tom Pritzker of Hyatt Hotels, and real estate personality Donald Trump. Sometimes seen not at all that clear as to what he actually does to earn his millions. Certainly you won't find Epstein's transactions written about on Bloomberg or talked about in the trading rooms. The trading desks don't seem to know him. It's unusual for animals that big not to leave any footprints in the snow, as a high-level investment manager. From Vanity Fair, The Talented Mr. Epstein by Vicky Ward, 2003. Also later on, from a New York magazine, The Dish on Dinner, Donald Trump dines at Jeffrey Epstein's New York City Upper East Side mansion in 2003. So then again, and also on the guest list, Lex Wexner, who owned that mansion, and Bill Clinton aide Doug Band. So there's, you know, your Clinton connection there as well. Google co-founder Sergey Brin, Mort Zuckerman, David Blaine, disgraced British cabinet minister Peter Mandelson. All of them dined at Jeffrey Epstein's New York City Upper East Side mansion that Lex Wexner transferred him, the Cynic, for $1. $1 he transferred him to.
$1.
$1, you can have my house. Of course, allegedly that house was wired to record video and sound for blackmail purposes. This was also the house that Katie Johnson was allegedly raped in. That we discussed earlier.
Right. So from that, it's rather obvious that Jeffrey Epstein has been using his sex escapades and his ability to procure underage women to get blackmail information on people and use that to get, you know, his wealth.
Yes.
I mean, What a piece of crap.
Yeah, both.
I mean, you know, I'm sorry that I'm like just because my brain just like, oh, what a piece of crap. Like just for a little bit of money. And it's like, don't get me wrong, you know. I think that, you know, he shouldn't. I'm a little bit conflicted on the fact that, you know, he committed suicide by 2 gunshot wounds to the back of the head.
In jail.
Okay, that was a little. I'm a little bit conflicted because he couldn't expose the people who were also doing this, and that's probably exactly why he was killed. I don't think anybody for a second thinks that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself after. I believe I heard some information. I don't have it in front of me right now that he was committing to exposing people for a reduced sentence. Who gets themselves a deal for a reduced sentence to expose people and then commits suicide the day after they get released from suicide watch?
Or it came out today too that the prisoners heard his screams. You know, who commits suicide? You know, and you hear your screams. Okay, like, you know, you're screaming for your dear life and there's scuffling. You know, you don't. That doesn't happen.
That's a good point.
Especially doesn't happen when you're choking yourself. You can't talk. Your larynx is cut off.
Yeah, your throat is compressed. There's no air that can come out, so you can't make noise. I mean, you might make some, but you wouldn't be screaming like.
No, not at all. Now, some people say this is when Trump and Epstein stopped being friends. I'm going to get to that. It's I'm not going to read the articles. The articles are very long. They're there. But I want to talk about this. Donald Trump was in a bidding war with Jeffrey Epstein. Trump later won over Abe Gosman's mansion in Palm Beach, Florida, November 2004. Trump later sold the Gosman estate to Russian oligarch Dmitry Robolev in 2008 for $95 million. There was possible conversations before and after the bidding war between Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, November 2004. Here are their messages where Donald Trump and Epstein had called each other. So go ahead. Let's read about. Go ahead and read about when there's a possibility that Donald Trump. This is actually when Jeffrey Epstein, you know, became under investigation by the Palm Beach Police Department. That over this bidding war, it turned sour. So Donald Trump possibly may have turned him in then.
Right. I mean, that's exactly it. You know, Donald Trump probably had to pay a little bit more for a mansion than it was worth because he got into a bidding war with Jeffrey Epstein, which took out, you know, his profit margin. He would have been able to make less money because I think I've read that article and it says he sold it for $92 million. Imagine if he wasn't in a bidding war with Epstein, he could have bought it for $31 million and made an extra $10 million profit. I'd be pissed off at Epstein too.
And also one thing about that too as well is apparently Epstein, possibly according to John Prester, may have been managing Trump's money or knew at least how much money Trump had. It was going to go, well, if you bid on this mansion, I'm going to expose you that you don't have as much money as you think you do. I don't know, but that's something that John Presser had mentioned in our own Dudes Talking episode that's linked at the very end when we talk about Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. But go ahead and read this. Bless you. Go ahead and read this article, this excerpt from the Daily Mail, part of it.
Which one?
Did Donald Trump report Jeffrey Epstein to the Palm Beach Police Department over the Abe Gosman estate bidding war?
Oh, okay. From the Daily Mail, Trump blew the whistle on Jeffrey Epstein. Pedophiles threat to expose president as a financial fraud after he stole his $125 million mansion led to then tycoon outing the pedophile to cops. Michael Wolff, who was close with both men in the early 2000s, writes in Fire and Fury and Siege, Trump Under Fire, that Epstein was outed to authorities soon after he threatened to expose Trump as a financial fraud. It all started in 2004 when Epstein, who was still friends with Trump at the time, invited the real estate scion to see Gosman Estate, which was at one time owned by Leslie Wexner, that he had planned to purchase and then flip. And it all ended with Donald Trump pocketing more than $50 million in profits and Epstein behind bars. Though both men did manage to negotiate sweet deals, Epstein was planning to pay $36 million for the property, the information he shared with Trump because he was certain the still struggling developer would not be able to produce the capital to submit his own bid. That assumption proved to be wrong. And after learning of Epstein's plan to list the home at a sizable profit, millions after renovations, Trump snapped off the oceanfront villa by bidding $5 million more than his pal. He would list it for $125 million after minor renovations, and it would sell for $95 million to Russian oligarch Dmitry Ryabov. Polovelev in 2008, which resulted in an enraged Epstein threatening to expose Trump. It was shortly after making those threats that Epstein found himself under criminal investigations, writes Wolf.
The plot
That's
thickens.
interesting. The plot thickens. Well, that seems to give us the impression that Trump, at the very least, knew about Jeffrey Epstein's sexual escapades because he had the ability to blow the whistle on it. And the question is, why didn't he blow the whistle earlier if he wasn't friends with Jeffrey Epstein?
Or why didn't he blow
Which
the
implies-
whistle earlier if he actually cared about the victims?
Exactly. Like,
If he was a good, upstanding
frankly-
person, trust the plan.
Right. I mean, if I found out some random person who wasn't my friend, or let me rephrase this. Let's not make this so personal. I can understand the thought process of someone wanting to be loyal to their friend, and then after they feel like they're no longer friends, you know, certain personal information is no longer sacred and can be exposed. But the fact that they had that personal information in the first place to expose implies to us that there was an initial friendship that occurred.
Yes, very much so. And people say that Trump and Epstein weren't friends. That Epstein was bigger friends than Bill Clinton. It's a freaking joke, in my opinion.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I think Epstein was probably a really good friend to Bill Clinton, because Bill Clinton probably, definitely, almost certainly does like them on the younger side
Yes,
as well.
but Donald Trump was Jeffrey Epstein's ride or die bud. We got more to go through.
All right. You can convince me. Don't get me wrong. I definitely think that they were really close friends, but ride or die, I think that's a little bit far.
Well, we're gonna go through that. Maybe that this bidding war thing might be disinformation. That maybe they were friends afterwards. We'll get to that.
That could be true. Absolutely. All right. So we're going to the next article. Oh, it's the same thing.
Yes, the same part of it. Next part of it.
Soon after negotiating the deal for the house in Palm Beach, Epstein took Trump to see it, looking for advice on construction issues involved with moving the swimming pool, writes Wolf. But as he prepared to finalize his purchase for the house, Epstein discovered that Trump, who was severely cash constrained at the time, had bid $41 million for the property and bought it out from under Epstein through an entity called Trump Properties LLC, entirely financed by Deutsche Bank. Local reports reveal that two men did in fact battle it out at the auction, with Trump saying, "I won't be living there because I already live in the best house in America." He later mentioned, "I'm the largest developer in New York." Oh, hold on, I did this wrong. "I'm the largest developer in New York, so this isn't a big deal to me." The property sold for $96 million, more than doubling Trump's initial investment even after renovation costs. Epstein was apoplectic and threatened to expose the precarious nature of Trump's wealth. A furious Epstein, certain that Trump was merely fronting for the real owners, threatened to expose the deal, which is getting extensive coverage in Florida papers, writes Wolf. The fight became all the more bitter when not long after the purchase, Trump put the house on the market for $125 million. And Trump, in turn, helped usher in the PBCSO investigation by exposing Epstein's secrets. Just as the enmity between the two friends increased over the house purchase, Epstein found himself under investigation by Palm Beach police, writes Wolf. Epstein was... Whoops. Did I read that twice?
Yeah, it's fine. Donald Trump in turn banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago, but according to Wolf, did not sever the friendship entirely until years later. Remember, Epstein did not allegedly ban Mar-a-Lago to 2007. So again, there's another question about this, but we're definitely could continue. I want to talk about the Abe Gosman thing, but it could be looked at as disinfo. You know, Michael Wolff isn't necessarily the most trustworthy reporter and author, in my opinion. But it is something interesting to mention because it was reported in the newspapers at that time. So Trump, now we're going to move on to Trump kicks Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, ? 2007.
Right. Okay, it cost $10,000 to join the club. Members paid $14,000 yearly in dues, and although Epstein had never properly joined the club Trump's friendship with Ghislaine Maxwell gave Epstein unlimited use of the facilities. This arrangement ended when a member's young daughter complained to her wealthy father while relaxing Mar-a-Lago. She's been approached and invited out to Epstein's house. The girl said she had gone and that Epstein had tried to get her to undress. The girl's father had gone directly to Trump, who in no uncertain terms told Epstein that he was barred from Mar-a-Lago because no complaint was filed. The police had taken no action. Wow.
It's very interesting. I mean, that's from Filthy Rich by James Patterson, John Connolly, and Tim Malloy, which in myself, I think that book is a limited hangout. James Patterson lived next to Jeffrey Epstein in his own Palm Beach mansion. And we're going to discuss, we're going to play a clip a little bit from Derek Bros from the Conscious Resistance of why that might be disinformation.
Okay.
See if I can get this to load. No!
If it doesn't load, I can get you the link, I think.
Yeah, let me scroll back. I accidentally passed it. Give it a second. See if it'll load.
I'll just post the link to you anyway. Boom.
I'm going to have to do that for all of them because they're not going to load in here for some reason or other. I don't know why they're supposed to.
Hey friends, this is Derek Bros with the Conscious Resistance.
Also, shout out to Derek Bros. You subscribe to the Conscious Resistance. I follow Derek Bros' work. His work on the Finders, his work on Jeffrey Epstein is top notch. I'm going to play a little bit. I hope Derek doesn't mind from his interview when he... it should be on here. Bradley Edwards. Did I...
Yikes.
Or did I get the wrong one? Actually, no, I got the wrong one. It's the one before then. Here we go. So this is the interview with him asking Bradley Edwards if whether he was able to substantiate.
He got more time, and then I think he died as soon as he got out of
shortly after
prison,
that.
which
I saw that.
Very unfortunate, because he was one of the only people that could authenticate that document. I mean, it came from his house.
There we go.
Bad parts of the...
Those claims or whether or not they're... So obviously, we're not a court of law here right now, but are those claims of that case was dropped? It was dropped before it went to court.
President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, he is the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
And that was in 2009?
That was in 2009. So...
Do you know if there's any truth to James Patterson's claims that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago?
I've definitely heard that.
Yeah.
I definitely heard that, and I don't know that it was Trump himself as opposed to a manager there.
But it's Trump's club, so
yeah,
people credit him.
I've heard the rumor that Epstein was kicked out of there for allegedly trying to pick up somebody's daughter or something like that. But I think I did chase that down as far as I could and never was able to confirm it. But I heard it.
I'm on the same boat with that. And just as
you see, Bradley Edwards was never able to track down that rumor. We got some more information about that. So let's go ahead and continue with the slideshow. And I'll read this part real quick. From the New York Times, Jeffrey Epstein was a terrific guy. Donald Trump once said, now he's not a fan, by Annie Karni and Maggie Haberman. Sam Nunberg, a former campaign aide to Mr. Trump, said that he had raised concerns about the candidate's involvement with Mr. Epstein before Mr. Trump officially began his presidential campaign. Mr. Trump assured Mr. Nunberg that he had barred Mr. Epstein from entering his clubs after Mr. Epstein had tried to recruit a woman who worked at Mar-a-Lago. Okay, now this is what we're going to talk about when actually the lawyer for the Trump organization, him discussing talking about when Trump allegedly kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. And you can read this part, the Cynic.
Okay, so this is Trump kicks out Jeffrey. Okay. From Vice News, the salacious ammo even Donald Trump won't use in a fight against Hillary Clinton. Trump's attorney, Alan Garden, told Vice News last week the president The presidential candidate had no relationship with Epstein and only knew him because Epstein was a member of Mar-a-Lago, Trump's private club and residence in Palm Beach. A lot of people hung out there, including Jeffrey Epstein. Garten said, that is the only connection. From the Washington Post by David Farenthold, Beth Reinhard, Kimberly Kindy. Alan Garten, an attorney for the Trump Organization, has said Trump had no relationship with Epstein. The relationship, whatever it was, appears to have cooled by 2007. Garten said in an interview Monday that although Epstein was never a member of Mar-a-Lago, Trump prohibited him from visiting the club at around that time, as a reaction to criminal charges that had been filed against Epstein. He banned him from stepping foot on the property, Garten said. He said Trump's private attorney were not contacted during the more recent investigation of Epstein, which resulted in a 14-page federal indictment unsealed Monday.
Now, here's the actual article that I was able to find from page 6 discussing, and I'm going to read the very bottom of it, discussing it. So this happened on October 15th, 2007 was when this was reported. Meanwhile, the Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach last night confirmed a website report that Epstein has been banned there. Quote unquote, he would use the spa to procure girls, but one of them, a masseuse about 18 years old, he tried to get her to do things, a source told us. Her father found out about it and went absolutely ate bleep. Epstein's not allowed back. Epstein denies he is banned from Mar-a-Lago and says, in fact, he was recently invited to an event there. Now, the Cynic, let me ask you. Now, during this time period, Jeffrey Epstein had been arrested. The investigation had been reported in the local newspapers in Palm Beach and nationally. He had been arrested in 2006. So my question to you is why did it take so long for Trump to ban him? If Trump banned him on October 15th, 2007, around that time period, okay, why did it take Trump so long to ban him? Even though I know they're bros and everything like that, but it's very interesting. And even Epstein says, and later we'll find out that it may not be the case, that he was not, he had not banned him. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, yeah. I mean, if it took so long to ban him, even in the best case scenario, that seemed to imply that he only got banned because he went after the wrong underage girl. You know, somebody who had a powerful parent, apparently who had the capability of going directly to Trump. So maybe he only got banned because he went after the wrong person.
Exactly. Here, the next is a deposition from Juan Alisi, long-term employee of Jeffrey Epstein on September 8th, 2009. Can you read the deposition, the Cynic?
Yes. Did he have massages sometimes when he was there? Yes, a massage was like a treat for everybody. If they want it, we call the massage, and they have a massage. Now, Mr. Trump had a home in Palm Beach, correct? Uh-huh. So he didn't come and stay there, did he? No, never. He would come for a meal. He would come, have dinner. He never sat at the table. He eat with me in the kitchen. Did he ever have massages while he was there? No, because he's got his own spa. Sure. Miss Ezel, I don't have any other questions right now. I'd just like to reserve. If something comes up to ask, but otherwise, you may go ahead. Mr. Langino. It is noon, so I don't know what everybody else's schedule is. I don't know how you're feeling. The witness. I am fine. Miss Ezel, I do have another question. May I ask it?
So the Cynic, let me ask you. When you go to a person's house, you know, and we do know that Trump dined at Epstein's table. That's reported in other instances. Most people say, well, he dined in his house once and he never ate. He ate with the help. He didn't dine at Jeffrey Epstein's table with everybody else. That's a lie. When you go to a friend's house, you know, don't you, if you're really good friends with them, or let's say your brother's house, you know, don't you go to your kitchen, you know, make yourself a snack, you know? So let's say, you know, you're Jeffrey Epstein's friend, you go in his kitchen, you have the chef make you something to eat, and you're in there talking, I don't know, football or something, you know, because Trump is personable, you know, you're talking to the help, you know, you're eating, you know, and talking to the help as they make you dinner. So that's exactly what's going on here, in my opinion. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, that seems to imply that from a psychological level that he felt comfortable being around the house, that he could just go into someone else's kitchen and make himself a sandwich. Like, I don't even feel that way around certain family members unless they have insisted that I should do that over a long period of years. Like, I don't like the only thing I feel comfortable doing at my grandmother's house is maybe going into the fridge and getting a drink and pouring myself a glass of juice or water or whatever's in there. I wouldn't go into my grandmother's fridge, get out, some bread and make myself a toast and sandwich, and like, I don't even feel comfortable doing that in my grandmother's house, which seems to tell us that there does seem to be some sort of rapport between Epstein and Trump where that is acceptable behavior within that friendship.
Yeah, very much so.
Either that or Trump's just some jackass who just barges into someone's kitchen and is like, make me a sandwich. I want a sandwich now. Fuck you. Grab him by the pussy. First class pussy. First class sandwiches.
Exactly. Could be either one. I think they're. I think they're bros though. So earlier Bradley Edwards had mentioned the subpoena, Donald Trump being forthcoming. So why don't you read this part, and we're going to discuss afterwards of why Donald Trump being forthcoming doesn't necessarily mean that he is innocent.
Right. From Vice. Oh, wait, didn't we already read that? Oh, it's different parts from the same article. Okay. When asked about a subpoena served to Trump in 2009, Garden said it never happened. The subpoena called for Trump to give a deposition in a case against Epstein. Garden's denial baffled Brad Edwards, one of Virginia Roberts' attorneys. There is no debate over what happened. Edwards told Vice News, I served Mr. Trump with a subpoena for deposition in 2009. He talked to me voluntarily, and consequently, we withdrew the subpoena in light of his voluntary providing information. I can't imagine there being any dispute of this. Garden said Trump had never been to Epstein's house, which we know is a lie from Alessi's deposition. Brad Edwards called me to let me know that you had reached out to him, Garden said. I looked back at my records and saw that Mr. Trump was subpoenaed. From Radar Online, around 2008 or 2009, Brad was issuing subpoenas to a lot of people who'd met Epstein, the source told Radar. He got a call back from Mr. Trump's lawyer to say there was no need to subpoena him. Mr. Trump would call him immediately. The call followed quickly, Radar has been told. During the conversation, Trump was open and forthright, Edwards said. I cannot discuss the substance of the conversation, but I will say it was obvious to me that he was in no way involved in any untoward activity. Right. Right. Well, well, it could also be a manipulative tactic from Trump. Like, he could come across like, oh yeah, I'm gonna help you out. I hate that Jeffrey Epstein bastard. I'm gonna put him in jail. I banned him from my club. You tell me what you need, I'll give it to you.
Yeah,
I'm just a busy man. Listen, I'm a really busy man, and I'm making millions of dollars. So what I need from you is like, I don't have time to do these depositions, but if you need any information, you call me. Here's my number.
Yes, I mean,
and then
I mean, exactly.
Maybe something like that happened.
And
if something like that happened,
yeah,
that wouldn't exactly exonerate him.
Exactly. I mean, Virginia Roberts grew free. Donald Trump allegedly had no connection to her, but still, nonetheless, I still think that we'll talk about it later. how it's possible that Virginia Roberts Giuffre was threatened by Trump, or her family was paid off by Trump, so that she doesn't mention him. And of course, anything that comes out of Radar Online, like I mentioned earlier, is comes through David Pecker, who's really good friends with Donald Trump, who runs the National Enquirer. So you can't trust anything that comes out of Radar Online. It's disinformation, in my opinion. But exactly what you said, man. It's so interesting that everybody goes, well, Trump was forthcoming with Bradley Edwards, so he's a good guy. He didn't do anything wrong, and he doesn't even talk about Katie Johnson.
Well, it's not just that. They said, because he was so forthcoming with information, we decided not to subpoena him, and we withdrew the subpoena.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe, because that kind of sounds like Trump got what he wanted. And, if Trump was a bad guy, he wouldn't want to get subpoenaed. So he'd do everything in his power not to get subpoenaed. And it sounds like he got exactly what, bad Trump would have wanted, provided that this information about bad Trump is true.
Yeah, very, very much so. And also we know, too, that Bradley Edwards, as being Virginia Giuffre's lawyer, allegedly, Ed Opperman and I discussed as a possibility that Bradley Edwards possibly, maybe not, took some sort of money from Donald Trump as well. Possibly. Allegedly. Maybe. Why don't we read about Virginia Roberts Giuffre and her non-relationship with Donald Trump?
Okay. So, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, Jane Doe number 3. From Filthy Rich by James Patterson. John Connolly, Tim Malloy, Joffrey vs. Maxwell, Joffrey vs. Epstein, and the deposition of Virginia Roberts Giuffre. According to a court document, Virginia filed in her civil lawsuit against Epstein. She was a changing room assistant at Mar-a-Lago, earning $9 an hour. When Ghislaine Maxwell approached her, Maxwell asked Virginia if she was interested in learning to be a massage therapist, which she was. Sky Roberts' deposition from Filthy Rich, so it's basically the same source. Virginia Roberts Giuffre's father, Sky Roberts, was a maintenance man for Mar-a-Lago. Sky states that he never met Ghislaine Maxwell or Jeffrey Epstein, and that he was okay, that he thought she was learning to be a masseuse. He claims he worked there for 6 years. Mar-a-Lago claims he worked there for 3. Weirdly enough, Mar-a-Lago stated that Virginia Giuffre worked for them during August 2000 through September 2001, which we know is not true because she was being trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein during that time, unless she was also working there when she could while she was being trafficked. Sky Roberts could not accurately recall when Virginia Roberts was starting working at Mar-a-Lago, saying she could have around that time. However, Virginia Giuffre states in her own declaration that it was 1999 that she worked for Mar-a-Lago and met Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Sky Roberts also mentioned that Virginia Giuffre was so excited when she met the Queen of England and would later apologize for the weird way he phrased the statement, and that she did not meet the Queen. Virginia told me a few years back that she met Prince Andrew when she went to London. She also said while they were there, she met the Queen. She was so excited about meeting the Queen. She had been flown to London by Jeffrey. He would fly her all over the world, and she would give him messages on his private jet. I want to clear up that many years ago, Virginia stated to me she was to meet the Queen's son, Prince Andrew, and not the Queen herself. I'm sorry for any misunderstanding. He added that he had not demanded that Prince Andrew be prosecuted, but said that any person, whether as prince or pauper, if anybody has sex with a minor, they should be prosecuted. Mr. Roberts said this weekend that his daughter told him a few years back that she had met Prince Andrew and the Queen after she had been flown to London by Epstein. The claim of meeting with the Queen was not made by Miss Roberts herself. Her father said he never suspected she was being abused by Epstein and his friends, adding, "At the time, we thought it was all okay." Virginia never said anything about sexual activity. I never asked her because I did not think that was going on. Mr. Epstein seemed an upstanding kind of guy. She would go to his house in Palm Beach, but always come home. When he started flying her all over the world, we just thought what a life she was having. All Virginia ever said was that she was hired to give massages. He said, "I still don't know. Virginia has never talked about it with me. And that's not the sort of thing a father wants to hear from his daughter. I might be putting my head in the sand, but that's the way I want it. What Virginia did back then is in the past.
Okay.
All right.
Sky Roberts is very curious, and we'll get to more about him later. But it's very interesting that he says that his daughter is excited to meet the Queen when she's being sex trafficked over there to England. It's So what do you think about all that? The Cynic. Let me know. What do you think about all that?
Well, don't get me wrong. I definitely think that there's probably a large degree of pedophilia within the royal family. I just...
Well, we know it's very likely that Prince Andrew was sleeping with Virginia Roberts Giuffre.
Right.
I mean, there's pictures of them together.
Right, absolutely. I don't know. I'm not sure about that claim that she met the Queen. I feel like the Queen would distance herself from someone like Jeffrey Epstein. You know, I feel like that the Queen and the royal family would probably have, you know, their own wardrobe of, you know, sex slaves as opposed to needing.
Wait, Jimmy? Did you mention Jimmy Savile? Jimmy Savile? Wait, Jimmy Savile?
Yeah, like
BBC
him.
Jimmy Savile?
Like him. Like him, exactly.
I do think Epstein. I disagree. I do think that she met the Queen, but I do agree that Jimmy Savile is more of a likely crown operative and trafficker and pedophile. Next,
I don't know. I just can't imagine the Queen putting herself in a position and putting her trust in someone like Epstein, who, you know, I mean, looks just like a piece of crap just looking at him. I don't know. I think the Queen is a little bit more cunning than that.
Possibly.
But that's just me. That's just me.
Possibly. So the next part is Virginia Roberts' Giuffre's statement, her talking about Donald Trump. It just recently came out this past week. So why don't you read this and let me know?
Okay. Donald Trump was a good friend of Jeffrey's. That part is true. He didn't partake in any sex with any of us, but he flirted with us. It's true. That he didn't partake with sex with any of us. Okay, sorry. That repeats. Then the next sentence is, he'd laugh and tell Jeffrey, you've got the life. I never said that to her. When you say he didn't partake in any sex with any of us, who is us? Girls. Just, how do you know who Donald Trump had sex with? Oh, I didn't physically see him have sex with any of the girls, so I can't say who he had sex with in his whole life or not. But I just know it wasn't with me and I was with other girls. And who were the other girls that you were with in Donald Trump's presence? None. There I worked for Donald Trump, and I've met him personally a few times. When have you met him? At Mar-a-Lago. My dad and him. I wouldn't say they were friends, but my dad knew him and they would talk all the time. Well, not all the time, but you know, when they saw each other.
That's very interesting. Why would Donald Trump talk extensively? And she had to correct herself, which is very interesting too. Why would he talk to Sky Roberts? You know, why is there's something to this, in my opinion. But let's read the rest of her deposition.
Okay. Let's just catch up because there's a little bit of repeated. When they saw each other. Have you ever been in Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein's presence with one another? Answer: no. What is the basis for your statement that Donald Trump is a good friend of Jeffrey's? Jeffrey told me that Donald Trump is a good friend of his. But you never observed them together? No, not that I can actually remember. I mean, not off the top of my head. No. But you never observed them together? No, not that I can actually remember. I mean, not off... sorry, that repeats. When did Donald Trump flirt with you? He didn't. That's what's inaccurate. Did you ever see Donald Trump at Jeffrey's home? Not that I can remember. On his island? No, not that I can remember. In New Mexico? No, not that I can remember. In New York? No, not that I can remember.
So, the next slide I'm going to read, and this is why I think that this is a little bit curious. Okay? Virginia Roberts Giuffre answers questions in her deposition about not seeing Donald Trump around the time she was allegedly being trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Virginia Giuffre does not see Donald Trump when she is flying on any of Jeffrey Epstein's planes or in his residence. I find her statement suspect because during the period Virginia Giuffre was allegedly being trafficked 1999 to 2004, Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were still known to be good friends and were seen often together. For example, the pro-am tennis tournament at Mar-a-Lago, Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, Ghislaine Maxwell, and a girl made to look older flew on Trump's private jet at 8 at Mar-a-Lago. And that was in October 2000. That was a Maximum Golf article. And Conrad Black's party all occurred during 2000. We also know from Vicky Ward's article and the deposition of Juan Alisi that Donald Trump ate at Epstein's mansion during this time as well. Finally, Donald Trump also died at Jeffrey Epstein's New York City East Side mansion in 2003. All times where Virginia Roberts Giuffre would have been around Jeffrey Epstein. Next is Jeffrey Epstein's little black book. Look at all the personal contact information for Donald Trump and his family. You got Donald Trump's brother Robert Trump and his sister-in-law Blaine Trump, Ivanka Trump, multiple numbers for Trump Management Incorporated for Robert and Blaine Trump, and multiple numbers for the Donald himself, his email address, numbers to Mar-a-Lago Club, numbers to Palm Beach, Florida, numbers to Trump Security, direct emergency contact, numbers for Melania. I mean, you know, again, there was no direct numbers to Bill Clinton. There was a number for Doug Bann, numbers for Doug Bann, who's been with Epstein, been with Bill Clinton, as well as a number to William Jefferson Clinton's scheduler for the William Jefferson Clinton office. But there are no direct Clinton numbers in Jeffrey Epstein's black book. But that is a crap ton of numbers for Donald Trump and his family. What do you got to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, you typically won't have that much contact information about somebody who you just know. You'll typically have one source of contact for them, and it probably for someone like Trump, it'd be through someone who, like their secretary or something. But this seems to be like basically all of his places, numbers for all of them, direct emergency, Trump Security, a Mar-a-Lago number. You just got so much information.
Yeah, that's a good friend. That's not someone you barely know. Next is unsubstantiated Donald Trump Jeffrey Epstein connections. Here's a few ones that I cannot substantiate, but I think they're important to go over. Go ahead and read a little bit of information about Virginia Robert Giuffre's life, okay?
Okay. Virginia Roberts Giuffre was threatened and or took payoff from Donald Trump and all the Clintons, which is why she does not mention them in her deposition or testimony. Sky and Lynn Roberts. She allegedly came into money as a child when Lynn's mother died, giving her a trust fund. Her father owns and runs a horse ranch, yet also worked for Mar-a-Lago as a handyman. Her Aunt Carol is a Mormon. Virginia Giuffre was also tragically molested by a family friend at the age of 12, which caused her parents to split temporarily, where she left off on her own and became homeless for a short time. She was also allegedly abused at least twice while living on the streets and was molested for food.
Which is a very sad story. I'm not lowering anything that happened to Virginia Roberts Giuffre. Okay, she was a victim of the highest order of this cabal. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that she's a fake victim or any of that. All I'm saying is I do think there's a possibility that she was threatened. And that's why Donald Trump is not mentioned by her. Now, there's a possibility she may never have seen Donald Trump. And one thing is I forgot to put it in there, we're supposed to say, is Sky and Lynn Roberts, their backgrounds are very interesting. You know, Lynn Roberts had money. She didn't know. Her grandmother was wealthy. And the family, the Roberts family used to go trips on with the grandmother. And when the grandmother died, she left Lynn Roberts a lot of money. And actually, Virginia Roberts Giuffre had a trust fund. And that was when Sky bought his ranch, his small little horse ranch, was from that money. It was not from a payoff by Donald Trump, allegedly. Okay, because it was bought way before then. But it was interesting enough. One thing I couldn't really rectify is if he's running a horse ranch, why is he also working at Mar-a-Lago? That didn't make much sense to me either. Sky was a maintenance man and ran a horse ranch. Lynn Roberts was a banker, a bank teller. So it wasn't like they were pulling a lot of money outside of getting that money.
Right. Okay.
So let's see here. The next slide. Go ahead and read more unsubstantiated Donald Trump. Actually, I'll read this real quick. I'll read this. So in 1985, Trump's sister, Marianne Barry Trump, the judge, buys 1125 South Ocean Boulevard for $11.5 million. Trump buys Mar-a-Lago for $15 million to $20 on the same day. Epstein will tell a journalist he underwrote one or both purchases. Epstein's friend Wexner buys nearby North County Road property, which he sells 3 years later for almost exactly $11.5 million. 19 years pass. 2004. Trump buys 1125 South Ocean Boulevard back from his sister for $11.5 million. Trump and Epstein fight to buy Wexner's old North County Road home. Wexner's North County Road home, now the Abe Gossman estate, ends up selling for many millions more than it should have because of the Trump-Epstein bidding war. New York Times will report that Trump-Epstein have a falling out in 2004 over a failed business arrangement. Of course, that source was Michael Wolff. 2 weeks after Trump angrily outbids Epstein, someone drops a dime on Epstein to the police about underage girls. 4 years pass, during which Trump tries unsuccessfully to sell the North County Road address he overpaid by billions to outbid Epstein. 2008. A Russian oligarch, Dmitry Roblev, buys the North County Road property for $95 million, more than twice that Trump paid for it. Trump has no other offers, so Roblev needlessly overpaid. It's the largest amount ever paid for a home in the United States. 2006. Roblev planes meets Trump's twice immediately pre-election. 2017. Epstein rep says that Trump meets with Epstein at Epstein's house on December 23rd or 24th, 2017. Roblev plane is in Miami at that time. So this comes from Seth Abramson. This is being fleshed out more and more, but it definitely, if you look at Trump's schedule, he was there at Mar-a-Lago during that time period, December 23rd or 24th of 2017. Of course, Mar-a-Lago being right down the street from Jeffrey Epstein's Palm Beach house. So looking at this, it seems like Donald Trump possibly had met Jeffrey Epstein in 1985 when he underwrote Trump's buying Mar-a-Lago, and later they became friends around 1987. So yeah, it's the same, flipping properties back and forth. Of course, Bill Clinton would also appoint Trump's sister for her court position. So again, there's another connection there. So it seems like if this is true, then Jeffrey Epstein met with Donald Trump while he was president, December 23rd or 24th, 2017. It's very scandalous, in my opinion.
Scandalous.
So next we got Trump administration's connections to Jeffrey Epstein. They're numerous. So let's start with Stephen K. Bannon and his connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
All right, Stephen Bannon. According to Lee Stranahan on the Kev Baker Show, Steve Bannon met with Jeffrey Epstein before Donald Trump won the 2016 election. It is unknown the reason Bannon met with Epstein during the Donald Trump campaign. And there's a YouTube link right there. From page 6, Steve Bannon trying to get on disgrace Jeffrey Epstein's good side. Stephen K. Bannon, Council for National Policy member as of the leaked 2014 membership list, former campaign manager and White House chief of staff for the Trump administration, shared a secret meeting with reviled billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein at the financier's notorious Upper East Side mansion. Former White House chief strategist Bannon was spotted stepping out of his SUV and entering the registered sex offender's sprawling 21,000 square foot mansion at 9E 71st Street shortly before 7 a.m. August 8th, 2018. Sources speculate that the disgraced Epstein wants to use his millions to work his way close to political power again. One told us Bannon needs money to bankroll his political agenda. Epstein has plenty of money and craves power and access. Roger Stone on Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. From the New York Times, Jeffrey Epstein was a terrific guy. Donald Trump once said, now he's not a fan, by Annie Carney and Maggie Haberman. Roger Stone Jr., the former Trump advisor during the 2016 campaign, wrote in a book he co-authored with Robert Morrow, The Clintons' War on Women, which was published during the campaign, that Mr. Trump turned down many invitations to Epstein's hedonistic private island and his Palm Beach home. Once when Mr. Trump visited Mr. Epstein at his Palm Beach home, Mr. Stone wrote about the scene of underage girls he witnessed there. The swimming pool was filled. The swimming pool was filled with beautiful young girls, Mr. Trump told a Mar-a-Lago member, according to Mr. Stone. How nice, I thought. He let the neighborhood kids use his pool.
That's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. Would you agree with me on that? That's extremely ludicrous. Extremely makes Donald Trump act like he don't know a darn thing. And he's done nothing wrong. He's a good boy trying to get his life back together. It's silly.
Well, we do have a contradiction to this statement in the sense that he said that Jeffrey Epstein likes the girls on the younger side, and then he has a pool full of younger women and can't connect those 2 points together.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. Very much so. Right on the money. Now let's talk Let's talk about Attorney General of the United States, William Barr's possibly connections to Jeffrey Epstein.
Bill Barr. From the New York Times, Jeffrey Epstein taught at Dalton, whose behavior was noticed. In February 1974, Mr. Donald Barr, William Barr's father, had announced that he was resigning as headmaster, protesting the meddling by the Board of Trustees, but that he would stay on until the end of the school year. Donald Barr resigned in June 1974 and would later become a faculty member of Columbia University. Jeffrey Epstein began working at Dalton during the summer of 1974. It is still possible that Barr's father hired Jeffrey Epstein to teach at Dalton as a mathematics and physics lecturer. Wait, what? Jeffrey Epstein, a mathematics and physics lecturer at Columbia? No.
Yes.
Although it is still possible for... Sorry, I'm just like... I think... I thought he was a psychology major.
Epstein? No, he actually never... he never went to college. I mean, he went to college, but he never graduated.
Wait, so he never graduated and he had a position as a mathematics and physics lecturer at Columbia University?
No. That was Donald Barr.
Oh, Dalton.
At
okay.
Dalton, yes.
Sorry.
At Dalton, yes. Yes. At Dalton, he was a mathematics and physics teacher. It was Donald Barr, Donald Barr was the faculty member at Columbia University.
Oh my! Sorry, I thought those 2 points were linked.
No, but he did get that gift. Okay, it's very interesting.
Although it is still possible for Donald Barr to hire Epstein if he took long-term staffing decisions, the Dalton School lost 4 mathematics teachers, according to the Daltonian, before the school year 1974 to 1975. That is why the school may have employed Epstein, partly because of the urgent need to fill vacancies. Although Epstein did not have a higher education, he also did not have a training license from the New York Department of Education. In 2009, Barr, briefly of counsel to the firm Kirkland and Ellis from 2010 and 2017, he advised corporations on government enforcement matters and regulatory litigation. He rejoined Kirkland and Ellis in 2017. Both times were after Kirkland and Ellis have represented Jeffrey Epstein. William Barr did not recuse himself from the 2019 investigation and trial of Jeffrey Epstein.
So Jeffrey Epstein dropped out of college. It was the Cooper Union and New York Current Institute of Mathematical Sciences. And then, after he dropped out, he was hired for a job at the prestigious Dalton School to teach mathematics and physics. It was Donald Barr, who was a faculty member of Columbia University. So it's very interesting that that happened. And it's unknown whether or not William Barr's dad really, Donald Barr really hired him or not. But it could have been. Still fits the timeline. Next, we got good old CMP member Kellyanne Conway. Why don't you tell us about good old Kellyanne Conway?
She looks like somebody had glued some skin to a skeleton, but
Michael Savage used to call her the barfly.
The barfly? Explain.
You know, she's to hang out when you go to a bar. You know, she's always hanging out with Donald Trump. You know, she's the barfly.
Huh. Well, I much prefer my skeleton with skin glued to it analogy, but whatever. All right. From the Daily Dot. Epstein pilot Larry Vysotsky, posing with senior Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway, CMP member as of the 2014 leaked membership list, on December 28th, 2016 in Palm Beach, Florida. Larry Vysotsky's Instagram was recently deleted. Blog post from 2015 on Larry Vysotsky flying with ex-Epstein sex slave or girlfriend Nadia Marcinkova.
And it's come out recently that Epstein purchased Nadia Marcinkova when she was a young girl, and that she was his sex slave and not his girlfriend, which is very disturbing. But I want to put that out there. I've been working on this slideshow for a while. That has come out. So yes, Nadia Marcinkova was purchased and trafficked and abused. All right, next slide. Let's talk about Wilbur Ross's connections to Jeffrey Epstein.
Okay. From the Daily Mail, Jeffrey Epstein partied with Trump's closest advisors, including Wilbur Ross, Rudy Giuliani, and Steve Mnuchin, at dinner hosted by David Koch, just 2 months after his release from prison. From the Wall Street Journal, Wall Street 2 makes cameo in Southampton. Photos from the 2010 dinner party at the home of David and Julia Koch, obtained by DailyMail.com, show Epstein as he chats with guests after screening of Oliver Stone's Wall Street sequel. Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps. The party was 2 weeks after Epstein had finished his sentence. Guests included hedge funder Jeffrey Epstein, who was greeted warmly by guests after he completed a prison sentence in June. It was the first time he had been out in 2 years, but nobody blinked he was there. A witness reports he was chatting to Jonathan Farkless, Leon Black, and Wilbur Ross. Peggy Segal, her name was found in Jeffrey's little black book. The publicist put Epstein on the party guest list and would then go to help Epstein host a dinner for Prince Andrew at his home, an event which guests told DailyMail.com was billed as a dinner with the royal and made no mention of the host. It was unclear when the two parted ways, but it was a different time, said Peggy Segal. The culture before Me Too was, you've done your time, now you're forgiven, she said.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Very interesting. On the relationship between Wilbur Ross and Donald Trump, Trump's Commerce Secretary worked for Rothschild Inc. for 24 years. Wilbur Ross, former head of Rothschild Inc.'s Bank Riser Advisory Team, Trump's pick for Commerce Secretary. Business ties to Trump spanning 25 years. Wilbur Ross saved Trump from the Atlantic Casino bankruptcy in 1999. And of course, he was a Rothschild banker. So next we're going to talk about good old Stephen Mnuchin, Secretary of Treasury, and his connections to Jeffrey Epstein.
From the Daily Mail, Jeffrey Epstein partied with Trump's closest advisors. Partied with Trump's closest advisors, including... Sorry, did I just read that? Oh, no, I didn't. Yep, there's that source. And then from the Wall Street Journal...
The sources are the same. You don't got to read them.
Yeah, okay. Rudy Giuliani and his then wife Judith were at the 2010 Coke-hosted dinner party and Wall Street 2 movie screening as well. Jeffrey Epstein was sitting right near Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani walked out of the theater at around the same time as Jeffrey Epstein, leading one observer to remark on the beautifully done meeting of prosecutor and the felon. Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump have been friends for almost 30 years at least. So... Yep. This is Rudy Giuliani dresses in drag for 2019 dinner. 2000 dinner.
Is the president getting fed up with his new lawyer, Rudy Giuliani? Giuliani's flurry of TV interviews seem to be doing more harm than good.
The president is now thinking that Rudy Giuliani is causing more headaches than he is solving problems.
The president has been frustrated with some of his recent TV interviews.
But Giuliani insists he's not going anywhere.
The president is encouraging me to do more of them. I try to keep them under control. The president feels that the TV interviews have organized his supporters.
Giuliani and Trump go back a long way. Look what we found in our video vault. A cringe-inducing comedy sketch they made in 2000. That's Giuliani, then mayor of New York, in drag.
You know, you're really beautiful.
The sketch was for a charity dinner, and it's pretty racy.
This may be the best of all. Oh, you dirty boy, you. Oh.
18 years later, the bromance is still going strong. But who knows how much longer it will last.
Oh, you dirty boy, you. Oh.
Best buds. Alexander Acosta received his law degree from Harvard University. He served as a law clerk to the Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito. He also taught law at George Mason University of Law. He would later go on to work for the law firm that would later represent Jeffrey Epstein, Kirkland and Ellis. In 2005, he was appointed as the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. His office prosecuted Counsel for National Policy member Jack Abramoff for conspiracy and wire fraud of Sun Cruise casinos and served 4 years of a 6-year sentence. Abramoff had been implicated in being involved in illegal acts, more than just conspiracy and wire fraud. Abramoff may have been involved in running Brownstone operation and spying for the Israeli government. Was his deal a sweetheart deal, an arrangement or agreement reached privately between two sides in an unofficial or illicit way, just like Epstein's? Interestingly enough, Alexander Acosta's replacement, acting Labor Secretary Patrick Pizzella, worked with disgraced Republican lobbyist Jack Abramoff in the late 1990s and early 2000s to hamper worker protections in the Northern Mariana Islands.
Okay, go ahead and discuss the sweetheart deal.
Is that the next one? Okay. The sweetheart deal. On a muggy October morning in 2007, Miami's top federal prosecutor, Alexander Acosta, had a breakfast appointment with former colleague, Washington, D.C. Attorney Jay Lefkowitz. Instead of a meeting at the prosecutor's Miami headquarters, the two men, both with professional roots in prestigious Washington law firm of Kirkland and Ellis, convened at the Marriott in West Palm Beach, about 70 miles away. For Lefkowitz, 44, a U.S. Special Envoy to North Korea and corporate lawyer, the meeting was critical, facing a 53 federal indictment. Epstein could have ended up in federal prison for the rest of his life, but on the morning of the breakfast meeting, a deal was struck, an extraordinary plea agreement that would conceal the full extent of Epstein's crimes and the number of people involved. Acosta denied this during his July 10, 2019 press conference. In late 2007, while serving as U.S. Attorney for Southern Florida, Acosta and his team drafted the federal non-prosecution agreement. The sweetheart deal was sealed until it was approved later by a judge and kept from Epstein's victims violating the Crime Victims' Rights Act. Epstein's victims had no say when it came to non-prosecution agreement. The non-prosecution agreement was that Epstein would plead guilty to 2 prostitution charges in Florida State Court, serve 13 months in Palm Beach County Jail, 1 year probation on house arrest. He was allowed numerous trips on his corporate jet to his residences in Manhattan and U.S. Virgin Islands. He also attended the Coke party during this time, register as a sex offender in New York and Florida, allow civil lawsuits. The agreement would shut down the FBI probe into Epstein and grant immunity from all federal criminal charges to Epstein, along with 4 named co-conspirators and any unnamed potential co-conspirators. Wow. Epstein was instead housed in a private wing of the Palm Beach County Stockade, and according to the sheriff's office, after 3.5 months allowed to leave the jail on work release for up to 12 hours daily, 6 days a week. He could come and go outside of a specified release hours. It is truly unknown if he served any times at all. There are no logs of his time spent in prison. Epstein's cell door was left unlocked, and he had access to the attorney room, where a TV was installed for him. Before he was moved to the Stockade's previously unstaffed infirmary, he worked at an office of a foundation he had created shortly before reporting to jail. He dissolved it after he had served his time. The sheriff's office revealed $128,000 from Epstein's nonprofit to pay for the costs of extra services being provided during his work release. His office was monitored by permit deputies whose overtime was paid by Epstein. They were required to wear suits, checked in, welcome guests at the front desk. Later, the sheriff's office requested that these guest logs were destroyed per the department's records retention rules, although inexplicitly the Stockade visitors' logs were not. He was allowed to use his own driver to drive him between jail and his office and appointments. Now, President Trump's Secretary of Labor, Acosta, 49, oversees a massive federal agency that provides oversight of the country's labor laws, including human trafficking, until he was reported to be eliminated on Thursday, a day after this story posted online. Acosta also has been included on lists of possible replacements for the possible Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who resigned under pressure earlier this month. Epstein's name, I was told, had been raised by the Trump transition team when Alexander Acosta, the former U.S. attorney in Miami, who'd infamously cut Epstein a non-prosecution plea deal back in 2007, was being interviewed for the job of labor secretary. The plea deal put a hard stop to a separate federal investigation of alleged sex crimes with minors and trafficking. Is the Epstein case going to cause a problem for confirmation hearings? Acosta had been asked. Acosta explained breezily, apparently, that back in the day he had just one meeting on the Epstein case. He'd cut the non-prosecution deal with one of Epstein's attorneys because he'd been told to back off, that Epstein was above his pay grade. I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone, and told his interviewers in the Trump transition, who evidently thought it was a sufficient answer and went back to hire Acosta. The Labor Department had no comment when asked about this. Wow, intelligence, huh?
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Oh yeah. Was the intelligence Epstein allegedly belonging to either United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, United States Central Intelligence Agency, Saudi Arabian intelligence, Adnan Khashoggi, or Israeli Mossad, the Maxwells? Or is it a combination of all four agencies? During Alexander Acosta's press conference, he denies Vicky Ward's above statement and quote.
So the next slide is a released document from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. On September 11th, 2008, case agent advised Ryder that Epstein is currently being prosecuted by the state of Florida and is complying with all conditions of his plea with the state of Florida. Epstein has also provided information to the FBI as agreed upon. Case agent advised that no federal prosecution would occur in this matter as long as Epstein continues to uphold his agreement with the state of Florida. Case agent also advised that no further forfeiture assistance will be required for this case. Case agent is requested to contact Ryder in the event this matter moves forward on federal level. Yeah,
wow.
So he was an FBI informant according to this FBI document. All right, continue.
Interesting. Wow. All right. So, Donald Trump defended Alexander Acosta's work for the administration before and during his resignation. Trump told reporters at the White House that Acosta had been a very good labor secretary and that Acosta probably wished he had handled the Epstein plea deal a different way. The president added that he would be looking at the case very carefully. Very carefully. I feel very badly, actually, for Secretary Acosta because I've known him as being somebody that works so hard and has done such a good job, Trump said during the Oval Office meeting with the Emir of Qatar. Alexander Acosta held a press conference on the 10th of July, 2019. Alexander Acosta resigned as United States Secretary of Labor on July 12, 2019. President Donald Trump said Friday that it was Acosta's decision to resign and not his, as he spoke to reporters as he left the White House for a trip to Wisconsin. Acosta was standing next to Trump as the president called him a great labor secretary, not a good one. Trump said it was very sad to see him go and said Acosta told him that he didn't want to distract from the strong economy and the work the administration is doing. Acosta said he didn't think it was fair to have Epstein as the focus rather than the incredible economy.
Interesting about Acosta, huh? Really interesting.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it just gets deeper and deeper. You see the connections between the intelligence agencies and you go, And the question is, was there any actual connections between intelligence agencies, or was this fabricated so that they could put pressure on prosecutors trying to put him in prison?
We really don't know. I mean, he does have vast connections to Adnan Khashoggi, which would be Saudi intelligence, the Maxwell's, which would be Mossad. And of course, it does appear at one time he was an FBI informant. So I mean, we don't know. We really don't know, because I mean they're all corrupt. All these intelligence agencies are corrupt. So we really don't know. Epstein probably played them against each other, and whoever's above Epstein, like maybe Lex Wessner, or so it's a very interesting game that was played between all these people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So next we got Donald Trump's personal connections to Jeffrey Epstein. So why don't you read about Robert Schenck?
All right, from LinkedIn, Trump University. I was there. State accreditation is not the issue. From New York Magazine, Jeffrey Epstein's prison party. Roger Schenck is the chief learning officer for Trump University from 2005 to 2007 and visited Epstein in prison during 2008. Jeffrey Epstein's mentor, Stephen Jude Hoffenberg and Donald Trump. From Quartz, Jeffrey Epstein's fortune is built on fraud, a former mentor says, by Heather Timmons. In the late 1980s, Hoffenberg hired Jeffrey Epstein as a consultant at $25,000 a month. They traveled the world together on Hoffenberg's plane, Ward Road. In 1997, Hoffenberg, the head of the bill collection firm Towers Financial, was sentenced to 20 years in jail for running one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in U.S. history. Thousands of investors were bilked of more than $450 million. Hoffenberg now tells Quartz that Epstein was deeply involved in the fraud. Epstein was never charged in the case, but he was totally in the mix, Hoffenberg said. He added that Epstein helped set up the Ponzi scheme. He was my colleague daily, 7 days a week, Hoffenberg said. Hoffenberg said that Epstein's connection to the crime didn't come up at the time because he pled guilty. When you plead guilty, you don't go in for elaborate discovery. Hoffenberg was released from prison in late 2013 after serving almost 20 years in jail. He still hasn't paid back most of the money he took from investors, a demand the judge included in his original sentence. Hoffenberg's allegations are also made in a lawsuit filed in August 2018 by former Towers investors. The suit calls Epstein an uncharged co-conspirator. It also alleges that the millions in stolen investment was the seed capital for Epstein's hedge fund, which it values at $50 billion. The suit says Epstein knowingly and intentionally utilized funds he fraudulently diverted and obtained from this massive Ponzi scheme for his own personal use to support a lavish lifestyle, but does not elaborate. One exhibit filed with the court by Hoffenberg and Towers note holders says that Hoffenberg, Epstein, and Towers Financial operated a classic Ponzi scheme from the late 1980s to mid-1990s, which succeeded in soliciting over $500 million in investments from all participants. All of the money was misappropriated for improper and personal uses, the exhibit claims, but does not provide any substantiating evidence. Epstein provided services including but not limited to assisting Mr. Hoffenberg full-time in all matters of business operations and management of TFC, Towers Financial, including but not limited to raising capital as a co-conspirator in connection with the TFC Ponzi fraud, the exhibit claims.
Okay, continue.
So, Okay, so Jeffrey Epstein's mentor. From Quartz, Jeffrey Epstein's fortune is built. So that's the same article, same source. Stephen Hoffenberg, a former Trump Tower tenant, he rented to him in 1993. Months after Hoffenberg was sued by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, started the pro-Trump Political Action Committee, Get Our Jobs Back, in April of 2016. He said in FEC filing in June 2016, it would conduct a $50 million marketing campaign for Trump. The money for the PAC never materialized. He left the Trump team after being disillusioned with their campaign tactics, he told Quartz, and particularly their reliance on WikiLeaks. I'm off the Trump team, he said. I told Roger Stone and all of them not to do the WikiLeaks, and no one listens. We've also got the Prince Andrew, Jeffrey
Yeah, next
Epstein.
we're going to talk about Prince Andrew so we get more in those connections. Here they are. They are in here. I did put them in here. So.
Yeah, they are here. So Prince Andrew of York reportedly met Jeffrey Epstein in the 1990s after being introduced by Ghislaine Maxwell, the daughter of media mogul Robert Maxwell. At the time, Ghislaine Maxwell was the financier's girlfriend. Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, Melania Knauss, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Jeffrey Epstein were together at Mar-a-Lago at Donald Trump's Pro-Am tennis tournament in February 2000. But in 2011, he was forced to step down from his prominent position as the special UK representative for trade after it was alleged that Epstein had once molested a 17-year-old girl, Virginia Roberts Giuffre. In 2015 court documents, Virginia Roberts Giuffre said she was coerced into having sex with a British royal. She also said she was forced to participate in an orgy with underage girls and the prince. 1 month, June 3rd, 2019, before wealthy financier and registered sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was arrested on new sex trafficking charges involving underage girls, two of his famous one-time friends, Donald Trump and Prince Andrew, appeared to have a friendly time together during the president's official state visit to the UK. The Duke of York helped his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, play guide for Trump's tour of Buckingham Palace's collection of historic American artifacts. A smiling Andrew also escorted the President and First Lady Melania Trump to Westminster Abbey to lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Ah.
2000.
I mean, that's a shit-eating grin if I've ever seen one.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. Next, why don't we talk about Henry Kissinger, Jeffrey Epstein, and Donald Trump?
All right. Henry Kissinger's name was found in Jeffrey Epstein's Little Black Book, and the both served on the Council on Foreign Relations together. Henry's wife, Nancy Kissinger, served on the Rockefeller University board with Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump has met Henry Kissinger 3 times since his campaign on May 16, 2016, on October 10, 2017, and on February 8, 2018. Donald Trump on his relationship with Henry Kissinger. Thank you very much, Henry Kissinger has been a friend of mine. I've liked him. I've respected him. But we've been friends for a long time, long before my emergence in the world of politics, which has not been too long.
And also, one thing I want to mention, something I forgot to add in here with the new information, was that Henry Kissinger was also at, we reported earlier, was at Conrad Black's party with Trump and Epstein back in 2000. So that was another connection between them. So it's very interesting that Donald Trump, fighting the deep state, but very good friends with one of the world's biggest deep state swamp dwellers, one Henry Kissinger.
Yeah. Henry Kissinger. Shit.
I mean, yeah. So now, why don't we go on? Now, this one's something we're definitely going to talk about. Is good old Alan Morton Dershowitz, Jeffrey Epstein, and Donald Trump.
Or as I like to call him, Alan Derpowitz.
Oh, yeah. Alan Dershowitz is definitely someone I've covered and someone I will continue to cover on this channel. He needs to be exposed.
Absolutely.
Superb memory. Excellent memory, that one, Alan Morton Dershowitz.
All right. I have covered the allegations against Alan Dershowitz in relation to Jeffrey Epstein here on my YouTube channel. We've read the documents. Well, or John's channel, we've read the document. Sorry, I was reading that word for word. Alan Dershowitz, Yale Law School graduate, was friends with Roy Cohn and would go to his parties. I actually believe he met Trump at these parties and has known him longer than the early to mid 90s and showed up as a character witness against his disbarment. So did Donald Trump. The story of Dershowitz's own reversal of fortune began on the vineyard in the summer of 1996. A family friend, Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, he said, invited him to a party for her husband, Lord Evelyn de Rothschild, where she introduced him to Jeffrey Epstein. She said, "I have this friend. He would really like to meet you," Dershowitz said. He said he found Epstein enthralling. He appeared to be more than just another rich guy. Like Dershowitz, Epstein was from Brooklyn, and he liked to discuss big ideas. He considered himself a man of science. He was feisty. He was utterly politically incorrect. Dershowitz said he was interesting to be with. Soon after their first meeting, Dershowitz recalled Epstein called him up and said that another friend of his, the billionaire Leslie Wexner, was having a birthday party. Wexner, who owned apparel brands The Limited and Victoria's Secret, had a tight and mysterious relationship with Epstein, who managed his money instead of presents. Wexner had asked each of his guests to bring the smartest person he or she had met that year. Epstein picked Dershowitz. He flew him out to Ohio on a private jet. Who was at the birthday party? Dershowitz said. Shimon Peres, Senator John Glenn, the then owner of Sotheby's. Their social connection deepened when Epstein started hanging around Harvard. Epstein opened an office near the school, gave it millions, and hosted seminars that brought together academics from different disciplines. By the time I got to know him, I had already represented a lot of very wealthy people, Dershowitz said. I was much more interested in his quirky mind. For around a decade, Dershowitz kept casual company with Epstein, who introduced him to his friends like Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew, whom Epstein called Andy. Dershowitz said he and the prince didn't end up getting along because they disagreed about Israel. Dershowitz visited Epstein's mansions in New York and Palm Beach and occasionally accompanied him on his private plane. Dershowitz says these trips were family orientated. Once, Epstein lent him the Palm Beach house so he could attend a granddaughter's soccer tournament. Another time, he and his nephew flew down to watch the space launch with another Epstein connection, a top NASA official. He and Cohen once stayed with Epstein on his island in the Caribbean, where they were joined by another Harvard professor and his family. When Jeffrey Epstein first started to attract media attention around the year 2000, mainly because of his friendship with former President Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz served as a character witness for the reclusive financier. He told Vanity Fair he shared manuscripts of his books with Epstein before they were published and swore that his money was irrelevant. I would be as interested in him as a friend if we had hamburgers on the boardwalk in Coney Island and talked about his ideas, he told the magazine. Alan Dershowitz is still Jeffrey Epstein's legal counsel as of December.
December 2018.
Right. Alan Dershowitz, the retired Harvard law professor, had an adorable 6-foot-tall stuffed bear in his daughter's bedroom and a potential legal problem on his hands. In the early 90s, and his client, hotel magnate Leona Helmsley, had given him the stuffed animal upon the birth of his baby girl. But Helmsley later admitted that she had stolen the bear from Donald Trump, keeping it when she sold him Rumpel's Mayor, a now shuttered New York ice cream parlor, famous for its stuffed bear collection, which was part of the deal. Viewing him as a paragon of ethical conduct, Dershowitz told her he no longer felt comfortable keeping the gift. Helmsley said she didn't want the bear back and waved him off, telling him he'd take his problem to Trump. I called him and I said, "Mr. Trump, I have a bear that belongs to you." Dershowitz said in an interview on Wednesday, he laughed and said, "I know Leona stole it. We have the inventory. Tell your daughter it's from Donald." Almost 3 decades later, their friendly acquaintance had taken center stage as Trump's mounting legal problems threatened to engulf his administration. Alan Dershowitz says he met Donald Trump at the Patriots game in Robert Kraft's suit, which would put their meeting between the mid to late 1990s. Robert Kraft is a member of Mar-a-Lago and would invite Dershowitz there as a guest often. Over the years, Dershowitz has spent time with Trump at Mar-a-Lago as a guest of the New England Patriots. As a guest of New England's Patriot owner and Trump pal Robert Kraft, as well as the White House on multiple occasions. Alan Dershowitz, who is a lifelong Democrat, was a Hillary Clinton donor and supporter during the 2016 presidential election, and starting supporting Donald Trump and defending him since he has become president. Interestingly enough, he did not support his friend when he was running for president, however became an attack dog for Trump after he became president. Over the years, Alan Dershowitz has spent time with Trump at Mar-a-Lago as a guest of the New England's Patriot owner and Trump pal. I think we've already said that. Alan Dershowitz has had dinner with Donald Trump at the White House Tuesday the 10th and visited with him on the 4th of the 10th of the 18th and the 4th of the 11th of the 18th to discuss the Mueller investigation. He saw Alan Dershowitz at Mar-a-Lago 6 months prior, recalling his run-in with Trump at Mar-a-Lago 6 months earlier. He said the president's main concern was Israel, not the law. He pulled me aside, Dershowitz recalled, and said, "I have messages for you to give to Bibi." Alan Dershowitz, over lunch, June 2018, convinced Donald Trump to pardon Sholom Rubashkin, who was first issued prison commutation as president. Sholom Rubashkin received a sentence of 27 years for 86 charges of financial fraud, including bank fraud, mail and wire fraud, and money laundering on 2010. He allegedly defrauded First Bank of St. Louis on revolving $35 million loan. Sholom Rubashkin ran Agri-Processors, which was a kosher slaughterhouse and meat packaging facility in Postville, Iowa, which was owned by his father, Abraham Rubashkin. One of the largest staged ICE raids occurred at that factory on May 12, 2008, where Agri-Processors was found to hire illegal immigrant workers, some underage, to work at the processing plant. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Iowa, those arrested including 290 Guatemalans, 93 Mexicans, 2 Israelis, 4 Ukrainians. An affidavit filed in court before the raid by the Homeland Security Department cited the issuance of 697 criminal complaints and arrest warrants against the persons believed to be current employees and to have acted criminally. The affidavit said a former plant supervisor told investigators that a methamphetamine laboratory had been operated at the plant and some employees had carried weapons to the plant. The former supervisor, the affidavit said, estimated that 80% of the employees were in the United States illegally. The Rubashkin family was reported to have denied any criminal activity. Aaron Rubashkin said that he had no idea that his workers were illegal and they had produced what appeared to be legitimate work documents. Nevertheless, he announced shortly after the raid that he intends to replace his son as the company's CEO. Sholom Rubashkin remained in charge, though he was finally replaced as CEO in September of 2008 by Bernard Feldman, a New York attorney who had worked as counsel for the family after child labor charges against Aaron and Sholom Rubashkin had been announced, and the Orthodox Union had threatened to withdraw their kosher certification. Finally, Agri-Processors had supposedly had numerous health code violations and inhumane conditions for the animals and workers. An internal report from the Agriculture Department has found that one of the nation's leading kosher slaughterhouses has violated animal cruelty laws, that government inspectors not only failed to stop the inhumane practices, but also took improper gifts of meat from plant managers. Also, some of the plant's 10 inspectors made faulty inspections of carcasses, failed to correct unsanitary conditions, and were seen sleeping and playing computer games on the job, said the report by agency's inspector general. In my experience, there are 3 different categories of slaughterhouses, kosher or otherwise. What? Dr. Temple Grandin said, about 20% of slaughterhouses do things right nearly all the time. There are a large percentage that do things right most of the time, and there's about 20% which tend to do the things wrong but will clean up their act when they're being audited. Within that bottom 20%, however, there is the very bottom 10%, that has the most blatant problems and violation, that's where agriprocessors is, in that bottom 10%. Chabad Lubavitch honored Alan Dershowitz on the 6th of the 14th, 2019, during a special event at the main synagogue at Chabad Movement's headquarters at 770 Eastern Parkway in New York City for his advocacy on getting Sholom Rubashkin, both him and his father Aaron Chabad, pardoned by Donald Trump. Oy, oy, oy. Vicky wrote. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that's all of the Alan Dershowitz part.
This slide's out of order. You got to read this one. I got to go back to the Adnan Cash.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Alan Dershowitz has advocated, advised, and defended Donald Trump's position to recognize Golan Heights as Israeli, not Syrian. Many of the board members and advisors of Genie Energy, an American energy company that is exploring for oil in Golan Heights, have ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Bill Richardson, the former governor of New Mexico who was in Jeffrey Epstein's little black book and allegedly molested Virginia Giuffre per her deposition, was a board member. Michael Steinhardt, Mega Group ties. Larry Summers, Epstein donated while he was president of Harvard. They have known each other for years, and Rupert Murdoch, two numbers in Epstein's black book, are all the Genie Energy board and also have ties to Epstein. Other advisors for Genie Energy include Jacob Rothschild, Dick Cheney, and ex-CIA director James Woolsey. Oof.
All right, go ahead and talk about Adnan.
All right, Adnan Khashoggi, Jeffrey Epstein, and Donald Trump. So Vicky Ward reported that Jeffrey Epstein had managed Adnan Khashoggi's money, which was why Jeffrey Epstein had a falsified Saudi Arabian passport. According to his former friend, the journalist Jesse Kornbluth, in the mid-1980s, Epstein said he worked for governments to recover money looted by African dictators, and occasionally subcontracted to those same autocrats to help them hide their stolen money. A source who spoke with journalist Vicky Ward said one of Epstein's clients was the late Saudi arms dealer Khashoggi, a middleman in the Iran-Contra scandal who helped smuggle cash for the Marcos family out of the Philippines in 1988. Khashoggi was arrested in Switzerland for concealing assets and then later faced fraud and racketeering charges in the US. He was later acquitted. That year, he sold his 282-foot yacht, the Nabila, to the Sultan of Brunei, who flipped it to Donald Trump. Donald Trump named it the Trump Princess and then sold it in 1991 to Prince Al-Walid bin Talal for $20 billion. 20 billion? You mean 20 million?
Huh? Yes, 20 million.
20 million. I read every word about Adnan Khashoggi, Donald Trump said to Dominic Doon. Khashoggi was a great broker and a lousy businessman, Trump said to me that night. He understood the art of bringing people together and putting together a deal better than almost anyone. All the bullshitting part of talk and entertainment, but he knew how to invest his money. If he had put his commissions in a bank in Switzerland, he'd be rich. He'd be a rich man today, but he invested it and made lousy choices. Robert Maxwell's yacht was sold to him by Imad Khashoggi, Adnan's nephew.
Of course, I talked about Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein's connections to Donald Trump. All three good friends, all connected on the Dudes Talking episode 7 with John Prester. So you can go back and listen to that one if you want to learn about all of those connections between those three people. They're very numerous, and we talked about it. We talked about Jeffrey Epstein's connections to Clinton. We talked about Clinton's connections to Trump and vice versa, and Trump's connections to Epstein as well. So that's everything.
That is everything.
Tonight's presentation. I want to thank the Cynic for joining me. Did you learn a lot about this presentation?
Yeah, quite a bit actually.
Do you think Donald Trump is connected to Jeffrey Epstein?
Oh, definitely. He's definitely connected to him. He definitely knew about the pedophilia and Jeffrey Epstein's involvement in that pedophilia. He probably was involved in it himself, But I would say that there's a possibility that he didn't. But at the same time, I'd say it's more than likely he participated. That's my perception on this.
I believe that he did. Of course, I got a picture up there now of one Alan Morton Dershowitz. He allegedly loves defending pedophiles. He's done it quite often. And he allegedly had a therapeutic massage. So he's very happy. Very happy. Alan Dershowitz is a great man. Superb memory. One of the good ones. Of course, I'm being sarcastic. But, you know, I definitely want to thank you for having you on the Cynic. We're definitely going to have you on again. You killed it, man. Your Donald Trump impression cracked me up. Of course, you know, not the parts that were somber, I guess, but it's the great impression. Great impression.
Well, all you have to do is pretend you have a cock stuck in your throat.
That's horrible. All right, well, take care of yourself. You know, we'll have you back on again. Thanks again. Say goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, it was fun. Don't forget to leave your comments. I will be reading them, so I think we're gonna have a reasonable discussion.
All right, good night. We'll talk soon. Bye, brother. All right, everybody. That's it for this evening. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream and found it informative. There are many, many connections between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, more than the MAGA hat-wearing people and the Q-tards would like you to believe. And so I hope this is well-sourced. I will have the PDF in a Dropbox so anybody can see it the next couple of days. But of course, with everything, till next time, continue reading the documents. Good night, everyone.